In business, there's no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. When you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on. Because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else: your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS, official shipping sponsor of the NHL.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
This is Hikaleo.
I am ELP.
And this is Keeping It Strong Style.
We love you.
Mwah.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jim Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review nights 4 through 7 of G1 Climax 36 and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network and Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts and newsletter over at socialsuplex.com. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style. If you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I think I committed a faux pas. Well, 2 of them actually here just recently. Number 1, I told you we'd be recording at 7:30, and then I had to push that back, and then even I was about 5 minutes late to that time. I got out of work a little bit late here, so bear with us. And then I don't think I've ever made a noise during the intro song, but my mic was on and something came through. So
Well, I have you muted during the music, so.
Oh, did you? Okay, good. Because on my end, it came through and I was like, "Ah,"
Yeah, I always have you muted when the music is playing. So,
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good to know. But yeah, I'm doing well. I'm excited. We got, lots of nights here of G1 action to talk about. And, we're going to jump into it. But obviously, I feel like, and you and I haven't really had a conversation here just yet, except for like some group chats. But, they're restoring the feeling. That's what it's feeling like.
Yeah. Yeah. The W and NJPW stands for We Are So Back. Yeah, this G1 has been awesome. I said in one of our chats, I feel like this has been the best G1 since 2019. And so yeah, it just feels like everything's clicking right now.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the tournament. I feel like there's a lot of really positive things to talk about. Before we jump in any of that, Jeremy, did you go out of your way? I know you're busy. You got a kid, you got a wife.
I got
career.
kids.
Did you go and see the Odyssey in theaters in IMAX?
No, I have not seen the Odyssey. Bro, I have not been to the movie theaters in like years.
I don't want to hear that, bro, because here's the thing. If I give off a take or a rating or opinion that is controversial, and apparently mine was.
Yeah, that generated a lot of listener comments. Were very heated about your movie takes last week.
Well, then it's incumbent on you as the co-host to ensure and vet what I'm saying, that it's factual, accurate, and true. So make time in your calendar, figure out how the fuck you're going to do this. You're not too far from AMC Veterans.
Right, okay? Yeah, it's right down the road from me, yeah.
You know, I'm not going to pay for you to go, but it's your responsibility as a co-host to go out there and watch this shit.
I'll get right on that.
yeah, bro. I don't know what you're doing. You're fucking up here. And what else is going on with you, man? Anything new? Anything positive that you want to talk about? Gab about before we jump into things?
Nothing new. I mean, last week kind of sucked. It was my first week back to work after being off for 2 weeks for my second half of paternity leave. So it was just coming back to a lot of stuff. So doing all that and trying to keep up with G1 and kid and all that stuff. But besides that, nothing else new is really going on here.
I hear a lot of complaining, but the reality is in the country that we live in, Jeremy, the idea that you work for any employer that'd be willing to give you a second maternity leave is it's a little bit unheard of. So I
split my in half. So I got 4 weeks, and I used the first 2 weeks when Jones was born, and then I just used the second 2 weeks.
You should have used some of that for the G1 in Chicago. I don't know what the fuck you were doing there. But yeah, glad to hear that, unfortunate that it's been a little tough for you, but you muscled through it. You got it done.
Yeah.
You watched all these shows.
I did. Yeah. And I'm here and I'm excited to talk about it. So let's jump in.
You're not listening to reviews of others on the web, on the internet, to figure out what you should be doing. You're not going through Cage Match and scouring them to get a feel and vibe for what happened. You're not, aggregating everything through ChatGPT. You saw it with your own two physical eyes.
Yes, and a lot of it live, thanks to Jones. So yeah, I've seen a lot of it live. I will check Cage Match after I watched it because I'm like, all right, how is the consensus feeling about these matches? Because some of the matches I'm like, man, I'm feeling pretty good. And there's one match in particular from this week I'm curious to hear what you take on, because I kind of have mixed feelings on the match.
We'll have to talk about it, but let me ask you, is this a situation where the general consensus is much higher than you?
So when I checked, I haven't checked Cage Match since I first checked it a couple days ago, but when I first checked, it was a little bit higher than me. But then when I went on Twitter and I saw a couple people kind of, were very low on the match. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm not crazy for kind of having some of the feelings I have. And then I listened to some people who are doing, different G1 audios, and they were like super high on the match. So I'm like, man.
Well, let me, here's my guess. Okay. And you can save it. You can let me know, but I know how you perceive professional wrestling after doing this coming up on 9 years. If it's one where everybody else is higher on it than you, and knowing how Cage Match is, then it would be Sonata versus Tsuji.
No.
But no. You can't tell me yet. We got to get to it.
Okay.
We got to get to it because you're stealing my thunder here. But I feel like you would have liked that match. Okay. But if I had to guess one that people were slightly higher on than you, that could be it. But if it's going to be one where the general consensus is lower than where you were, it's probably going to be Zack versus Gabe Kidd on the fourth night, on night 7 night 7 that we're reviewing. You don't have to tell me yet.
Okay.
But that's what my gut is telling me. And I will tell you right away, I am not in that outlier group. If anything, I'm probably high man on the match. And the match prior to it, which was, you know what? Yeah, which was Callum
and Drilla.
I'll just put it out there, man. There's white hate out there in the fan base. You know, they don't like the melon or the lack of melanin, mixing in with their Shinihan. But I bet you I'm right.
All right, well, let's jump into it. So
I bet you this month's Patreon numbers return that I'm right.
So we had nights 4 through 7. So this was night 4, July 21st, was in Sendai Sun Plaza Hall. Attendance of 1,612. Night 5 was in Arioka Nagaoka. Attendance of 1,055. Night 6, July 25th, from the Abara Wave Arena Ota, which is formerly known as Ota War Gym. Attendance of 2,027. And night 7 was also at the Abara Wave Arena Ota, July 26th, attendance of 1,580. So I didn't get a chance to put the comparisons down here, but it does sound like some of the nights here are either about the same as last year or a little bit higher, and it's pretty much been the same tour cadence, except with obviously Chicago being the first night this year, but they've kind of followed everything else as the same kind of nightly pattern. So if you look at the attendance, you can kind of do some comparisons, but it does look like for the most part they're either pretty even, or I think this night 6 one was a little bit up compared to last year when they did their first run in Ota. So overall attendance seems to be going pretty well for this G1.
Well, I mean, yeah, the Abara Wave night 6. I mean, the one thing we got to talk about here is you compare the numbers between night 6 and night 7, and it's we're not talking about like world beating numbers here one way or the other, but again, it is a live touring business, and there's a pretty significant drop on night 7. And if you recall last week, I had mentioned how there was a lack of, domestic stars on the show. Mm-hmm. And it was headlined, as we just recalled, because we're talking about the quality of those matches. I enjoyed them. I'm betting you did. But putting the match quality aside, the drawing power, it's a noticeable drop. So much so, did you see the post from a friend of the show, Velkej?
Yeah, he posted that it was one of the worst numbers in Ota in some years, right?
In many years, apparently. And for this year, it's the second lowest performing number. And I forget which company it was. They did like 1,200, and it was one of the smaller Joshi promotions. So it's like, yeah, it's not a good number. And I'm assuming, truth be told, that a lot of, now, of course, Zack has to take some of the blame, but we've seen Zack do respectable quality numbers against, top stars in this company. You kind of have to assume a lot of that has to do with Gabe Kidd and him having, I will say this. I made the argument that in Chicago, had he worked the Chicago show, not that it would have made huge differences, but I think they would have seen a slight bump having him and Drilla on that show. Mm-hmm. Just because I do think that he has exposure here in the domestic market, working for, and as we talked about, that was a heavy AEW fan base. I think that they probably could have attracted a few more butts to the seat having him there. But in Japan, different story. Not a difference maker here. So that's kind of interesting because they've got their number 2 belt on a guy who I'm a huge fan of. In fact, we're gonna talk about his antics from this week, which I thought were fucking hilarious. But somebody that's not really a mover or shaker when it comes to business side over there.
Right, and you would think, yeah, somebody that has the number 2 belt, the white belt, that's a guy that you want to be able to main event some, B shows or some other shows where the heavyweight title's not going to be in the line. So, yeah, it's kind of questionable. But yeah, does it make sense to keep this belt on Gabe moving forward, and kind of what his drawing patterns are in the main event spot. Also, he hasn't had a ton of main events in his New Japan career, but yeah, definitely not the best numbers for that night in particular. And like you mentioned, it's definitely they are missing the top Japanese draw. Obviously, the main event tonight was supposed to be Shota Umino versus Yuya Uemura, which you got to imagine, had that match taken place, the number probably
different story.
Yeah, it probably would have been closer to the previous night. Night 6 did have Shingo Takagi in the main event, and he did have a similar kind of drawing pattern last year. So the 2 back-to-back Oda nights last year, there was a night where it was Tanahashi and Finlay in the main event, and it actually did a lower number. And then the following night had Shingo, I forget who he was facing, in the main event, and the numbers were up. So Shingo proves to be a draw, especially a draw in this building. And the G1 paying audience, they like a Shingo main event.
Yeah, I also wonder if some of that has to do with the day that it fell on. I don't know if, I haven't worked out the math in my head, but I don't know if that was a show that was on a Monday or a Sunday, depending on the hours. But yeah, typically in situations like this, not always, obviously the people vote with their dollars. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes when they run back-to-back shows in the same building, the second show tends to just historically do the better numbers. So
yeah,
that's telling. One thing you mentioned, and we'll move on. Ideally, you would want the white belt holder to be somebody that can headline, but this company hasn't even really shown a proclivity to main event too many shows with that white belt. Ideally it's supposed to be the spiritual successor to the IC belt, but I don't see too many headliners doing what Naito and Nakamura did with that belt back in the day.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know that it matters.
Yeah, at this point it doesn't, but you would think at some point they would want to reestablish that title as a drawing title, where if you're going to do like a back-to-back, destruction or a new beginning or whatever, like night 1 could be headlined by the white belt, night 2 headlined by the black belt.
In a perfect world.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into the blocks, give the current standing updates, and talk about the action that happened this past week. So we'll start in the A block, and on top of the block is the Alpha, the NJPW World TV Champion, Konosuke Takeshita. He's sitting all alone, 3-1 with 6 points on night 4, defeating Yuto-Ice in 12 minutes and 4 seconds. Night 6, another victory over Bolton Oleg in 14 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, the night 4 match, first time ever singles matchup between himself and Yuto-Ice. The night 6 matchup, someone that he is no stranger to. Him and Oleg Bolton have had a series of singles matches going back to previous G1s, as well as matches contending over the never open weight title as well. So kind of interesting, the dichotomy there with the histories, but both matches, in my opinion, very much outstanding, especially just given the fact that neither of them were main events. Both of them were kept sub 15 minutes and were 2 of the stronger offerings on each of their nights.
Yeah, and you mentioned the positioning. It is, I think, a little odd that Takeshita has kind of been that same kind of the third G1 match of the night. Hasn't really had a ton of main events outside of Chicago or even semi-main events, and you would think a star at his level and a guy that's, was the world champion last year might be in more semi-main events and main events, and I'm wondering if they're maybe trying to hide him a little bit, so like you don't think about him a lot because he's not in the main event and he's going to kind of sneak his way into the semifinals, or are they just kind of, listening to the audience and kind of tapering him back because clearly whoever you put him in there against, the other guy is getting cheered and the New Japan audience really isn't bought into him as a full-time guy or as a top star. I mean, obviously I think they would think he's a great wrestler, and they react to his matches. But when it comes down to who he's in the ring with, like both these matches, the crowd were behind Yuto-Ice, they were behind Boltin Oleg, and we've been seeing this pattern now where Takeshita just can't win the New Japan fans over, even though now he's a face, now he's in Hontai. But yeah, he had some great performances here though.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think both of those are plausible explanations. We've seen in the past where some guys have worked a little bit lower down the card, but they were, bigger names in some of these round robins. This is a tactic I think we've seen more often. I don't have exact examples to point to, but I can think back to a few of the Super Junior tournaments where there were names. One that just stands out to me just thinking is like Teton, a guy that an outsider, a guy that's really talented, but wasn't working a ton of main events. And then all of a sudden, boom, there they are, in the semifinals and the playoffs and all that sort of thing. So that's something that they have done in the past. I do wonder if it's not just perception, but also it could be due to business. Like, we know that he is more than capable. And I will say this too, is like, I enjoy Takeshita quite a bit. I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, and he can have the longer, house style matches of New Japan. We've seen that. Mm-hmm. But sometimes on these G1 shows, it's a breath of fresh air to just see him go out there and do sprints with guys. And I wonder if also from a kayfabe perspective, the fact that he's the television champion and they have that 15-minute time limit, that this is somehow like speaking to that, it's kind of playing into the style that he's working currently. But I wonder if it's just business related. Like, they don't count on him for whatever reason to be a main event draw for the company, whether it's, but just based on what happened last year. Yeah.
And that's a good point you made about the TV time limit, because both of these matches were right under 15 minutes. So that makes a lot of story sense of, the 15-minute champion is going out there. He's used to working his pace and he's beating guys in that pace. So that makes a ton of sense. But also too, the kind of the drawing ability, even though we know that, we've heard that TV Asahi is high on him, and that's kind of why he won G1 last year and was in the semi-main event of the Dome. But maybe just based off of the drawing pattern to how things are going, they're trying to, put the best foot forward in drawing the maximum they could. So maybe that's, again, why he's not in some of those spots. But the work has been great. I love both of these matches. Probably the Boltin match a little bit more than the Yuto match, but both notebook matches for me. Both very hard hitting, especially the Boltin match. I love the spot where they grab onto the tights and they're exchanging forearms and kind of playing chicken to see who's going to let go first. And I just feel like Boltin is really also, we'll get to him, but I feel like he's really stepped his game up. And but Takeshita was just so dynamic in both of these matches. The elbows, the knee strikes, the blue thunder bombs out of nowhere, and then getting the ref stoppage over Yuto-Ice. Big win there, kind of getting Yuto to pass out. So Takeshita on fire right now. Great matches on top of the block here.
I mean, I can't lie to you, Jeremy. That moment that you just referred to, where they were holding on to each other's waistline and throwing shots, I wasn't too worried from the Takeshita standpoint because he wears the biker shorts. But Oleg, man, we seen guys, wardrobe malfunctions are not just a female thing. The most famous incident that I can think back to is Starrcade. I want to say it's 86, where it's or maybe it's 80. Yeah. It's 86. Flair and Nikita Koloff. Nikita Koloff pops right out that fucking singlet, and they had to edit that shit off of the WWE network. It's we saw Show have a wardrobe malfunction a few years ago where they had to edit the match off of New Japan World. So I was like, man, y'all boys are playing with fire right now. I enjoyed both matches quite a bit. I could see why someone, I think they're fairly close to one another in terms of quality. The Oleg Boltin Takeshita match was bombastic. But the Yuto-Ice match, I sort of enjoyed in a different way because there was a psychology element to it that I wasn't expecting. You know, we knew that these two guys were both massive strikers, and it sort of felt like, you know, given what had happened in the preview tag and then the way they started the match, meeting in the middle of the aisle, just throwing strikes, it's like, okay, business about to pick up, you know? But then Takeshita was like, yeah, this guy's got tape on his neck. He got KO'd in his previous match with Oleg Boltin. Man, I'm going to take you down to the fucking mat and I'm going to grind your neck down. And so he was still throwing crazy strikes with Yuto-Ice. He was still going to war with him, but in between those moments, he was taking Yuto-Ice to the mat and focusing on the neck and doing it in a way that, like, some people, you know, they hear like, oh, body part match and you know, neck work, and they're not super enthused with that. But I thought Takeshita did it in a way that was like, and Yuto-Ice is selling, given what he's already endured. I was like, man, this is really incredible. Plus, it's becoming very clear that Yuto-Ice, his big shortcoming as a singles competitor, he has all the heart in the world. He has all the fire in the world. He doesn't have a game plan whatsoever.
Right.
And it pays off for him in tag matches because he has Oscar there to kind of cover the bases. And when his lack of a game plan, you know, fucking fails, he's got a fail safe there. But on his own, he has no game plan. He's just doing it based off of rage and emotions, and it's not enough at this level of the game.
Right, yeah, he's on that pro wrestling high, and he, you know, doesn't have the stamina as a singles wrestler. You know, he's primarily been a tag guy, and so I think we've been telling that story too, of where, yeah, maybe he's not used to going as long just by himself, and so we're seeing that play out. And with that match, like you mentioned, Takeshita working over the neck. Also, I mean, a lot of Takeshita's offense also just normally goes after the neck. You know, he does the Wagamama knee or the power drive knee, whatever you want to call it. Also, the big knees to do the head. He's you know, doing the Blue Thunder Bomb. You come down, you're taking that impact on your neck and shoulder. The Raging Fire, again, you're kind of taking that impact on the neck and shoulder. So a lot of Takeshita's big offense, even if he didn't end up getting the submission, he, you know, a lot of what he was doing would have helped him, you know, potentially just get a pinfall victory. But it happened to play into his hand to be able to get that ref stoppage on him.
Yeah, ultimately, within the Yuto-Ice match, he wound up stopping him with a from a Boston Crab position. He put him in a rear naked choke and then cranked back. I said Boston Crab, I meant camel clutch position. And that's something I haven't really seen him use. I'm not saying it's not in his arsenal, but I've never seen that maneuver from him. And Yuto-Ice got choked unconscious. So two back-to-back outings in the G1, he was, you know, he suffered a referee stoppage, which was pretty shocking.
Yeah.
And then the Oleg Boltin match beat this man with the Blue Thunder, or not. I'm sorry, not the Blue Thunder, the Raging Fire. And Oleg Boltin at this point, you know, he used to use the what's the move where he does the forward? He does the Kenny Omega,
the kamikaze, yeah, the Finley roll, or the you can't escape, yeah.
Yeah, the forward Finley roll, the kamikaze, that was like his longtime finisher. Now it's kind of getting demoted to basically being primarily just a signature move, because he hit several of those. Takeshita kicked out of many of them, and it kind of became a war of attrition because those guys wrestled at such a fast pace in such a short amount of time. Takeshita finally had to put him down with the Raging Fire. Both these matches, just outstanding. Takeshita, if he stays on this pace, he's easily going to outperform last year's G1.
Yeah, and the clothing switch for that Boltin match was awesome. And yeah, he ended up hitting the Wagamama, and Boltin showed fighting spirit, no sold it, but then ate another Wagamama, Raging Fire, put him down. But yeah, Takeshita is, you know, putting together a really great campaign this year. Could easily be the MVP of the tournament and the A block if he continues on this pace. Obviously, he does have some people who are giving him some competition for that MVP spot for the tournament and A block, but he's on a really good streak right now.
Absolutely. And he's at the top of the block. Unmatched.
Yeah, only man with 6 points. So, you know, almost halfway through the tournament. That's a very good spot to be sitting in. Also, it's a very steep slope that he could fall down with this next coming up week. So if he continues this momentum, he'll be in a good spot to clinch one of the semifinal spot. But if he gets caught, lacking, he might end up getting knocked out here.
5 more matches to go for all of these guys, but yeah, you have to imagine at a bare minimum, 10 is the magic number just to even be in contention, most likely. And that means he really just has 2 more matches to win. 3 would probably be the clincher, depending on mathematics. So I can't imagine him going 2 and 3 in over the course of the next 5. Maybe he would, but that seems for me a little far-fetched.
Yeah. Well, up next, we got Hiroki Goto, who's sitting at 4 points, so 2 and 2. Night 4, losing to Jake Lee, and night 6, losing to the Great Okan. So back-to-back losses to United Empire members here. Both members using their own versions of shenanigans to get one up over Goto.
Things are a little strange right now in the faction lineups, in terms of in the past, different factions have felt super tight knit and close, and you easily can identify who's with who. And in 2026 right now, especially with Unbound Company in particular, doesn't always feel that way. Right now, United Empire, they were on this very hot trajectory, but they've kind of grown in numbers, and a lot of people are off kind of doing their own things. I forgot that Jake Lee and Great Okan are in the same faction. And that also sort of speaks to this, this kind of perception that's there right now, where it's these are the 2 guys who are stinking up the fucking tournament the most out of any of the two blocks. So not an easy task for Goto going back to back with these guys.
Yeah, in the Jake Lee match, Jake Lee ends up, feigning the knee injury. I believe it was the same arena where he had the knee injury, and so he's out there and selling that, and Goto fell for that and got caught off guard, and Jake Lee ends up hitting the face break shot to get the win there. And then in the
I feel confident that the only 2 people who believed this, maybe 3, would be Goto, Walker Stewart, and given all his medical expertise, the trainer backstage, he seemed to also believe that this was a real injury, which calls into question the quality of New Japan's health resources, because every single other human alive that was watching this knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jake Lee was not in fact injured. But yeah, it became very clear to me that this wasn't overly long, but Goto was just basically on top almost the entirety of the way. And once he started feigning the injury, I'm oh my God, Goto's about to fuck. He's going to eat one of these face break shots, and he's going to it was so easy to call.
Yeah.
And that was on the same night as Takeshita and Yuto-Ice. And those first 2 matches of that night were not anything to write home about. But then the last 3 matches were killer, and this was on the nothing to write home about side of that evening.
Yeah. And then over in the Okan match, I think it was a ref bump. He ended up using a chair on Goto and hitting the eliminator, getting the pinfall there.
Yeah, I think was that the night that HENARE was on commentary?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure he was, but yeah. Okan has been, the one kind of interesting thing is he has been utilizing a lot more chair offense. I guess there's probably this assumption that now that Evil is gone, kind of opens up that territory a little bit. And he's man, there's a lot of comparison points between my career and Evil's. This is a crutch that he rested on for many, many years. Maybe I could steal a page out of his book. And, so we've been seeing him use a lot of creative chair offense on the outside. oftentimes the referees are doing almost nothing about it. I believe this match in particular was the one where I forget which referee it was, but they tried to intervene and prevent him from utilizing the chair on the outside. And when he was able to steal it away, Great-O-Khan just walked over to the timekeeper's desk, took an additional chair, and bashed that man. But it's interesting here. We're speaking a lot more about Goto's opponents than Goto. He's it's interesting because he came off of this really big high of a win over the reigning champion Yota Tsuji, and now he's taken back-to-back, and he was the only undefeated guy in the entirety of the tournament going into this week. Mm-hmm. Now he's taken back-to-back losses to guys that, quite frankly, at this juncture of the game, I know it's the G1, but he really shouldn't be losing to these types of opponents.
Right. They're very winnable matches that, it should have been, 2 easy points each night for him. And so now those are, 2 easier losses, and he still has a lot of tough opponents left.
Now, the fortunate part about it is that these are big wins for Okan and Jake Lee, but they're not big mathematical losses for Goto.
Right.
Because if he does still end up with a strong point total down the stretch, and he already has a big win over Yota Tsuji, that would denote the idea that, he's probably going to maybe come back and pick up some wins over some bigger names that would put him in a better mathematical elimination position. Now, I'm not holding out hope that Goto is going to be a player when it comes to, I think what this tournament is telling me with Goto is he will probably resurge a little bit and be one of those bubble guys on the final night that gets spoiled and doesn't make it into. That's my prediction as we stand right now, and that's just what it's kind of looking like to me.
Yeah. Also, his win over Sonata is kind of important right now because Sonata also beat Tsuji, so he has some 2 good tiebreaker wins. But I agree with you. I expect him to kind of be on the bubble at the end and get knocked out. But I mean, he's already kind of clinched something important here. He pinned Tsuji, so to me that screams fall title defense. He's going to get a big main event out of that. So even without winning, he's probably going to be in line for a title shot.
That's true, but he also can't go, on a huge losing streak in this block. Like, he's going to still need to finish with something that's respectable who knows? It's New Japan. They can do whatever the fuck they want, but you would have to imagine that they still need to keep him somewhat protected if the idea is that he is going to potentially challenge Tsuji here in the next couple months. So I think it's going to be a big talking point. Like, I can already imagine the way commentary's going to be spinning it going into those final nights. So couple big setbacks early, guy comes back, he's got these huge mathematical wins, and on the final night it'll probably be like he wins and he's in, and then he loses. I haven't looked at the tournament sheet, but whoever it is he's facing on that final night, I think you can almost etch in stone that they're probably going to eliminate him.
Yeah.
Or you know what, maybe because he needs the title win, maybe you need to eliminate him before the final night and then give him a consolation win on the final night that gets him into like, I finished with 10, I finished with 12, but I was already eliminated sort of thing.
Yeah. So the last A block night he has Yuto-Ice.
He should beat Yuto-Ice.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe it needs to be something where he ends up with a really strong point total, but is already essentially eliminated. Or, what they'll probably do, Jeremy? I know I'm like, I keep rebooking this in my mind, but I think I've arrived at it. It'll probably be one of those situations where he's in contention on the final night. He beats Yuto-Ice, but other people's wins further up the card eliminate him from progressing through ties.
Yeah, like he can beat Yuto, get 10 points, but then maybe like Tsuji or Takeshita or somebody else, they both get 12 points, so then he's out.
He'll be like number 2 or number 3 on the evening, and it will be, or I don't know if they're doing the full block night with everybody, but it'll be like, so he's alive, but he needs 1, 2, 3, 4 things to happen in order for him to get through, basically.
Yeah, it's just an A block night.
Okay.
Yeah, so night 16.
So it'll be like he needs this person to win, this person to lose, and then he needs a draw here to. It's like that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So let's move on to somebody else that's sitting at 4 points. The IWGP Heavyweight Champion, the Gene Blast, Yota Tsuji, taking a loss to Sonata on night 4 in 15:23, and then bouncing back with a victory over his stablemate, Shingo Takagi, in 24:12.
Yeah, last week, my voice just cracked. That's weird. Last week, I had speculated and said, he's got this kind of long-standing, desire to face the former IWGP World Champions to kind of further this generation and stake his claim as the best of his generation. So I was like, yeah, he's definitely going to lose to Shingo in that case, because I could totally see Shingo, and he already took a loss to, who was the other champion he lost to earlier? Oh, Goto. That's right. And it's like, so far he's faced 4 former champions. He beat Takeshita, and then he also faced Sonata. I was not counting on the former champion that he lost to be Sonata, and the champion that he defeats to be Shingo. So that was a bit shocking there.
Yeah, and 2 really good matches here. I don't know what's up with Sonata, but again, we kind of talked about it from night 1. He's been trying, very motivated, and he looked really, really good in this match with Tsuji, and it, kind of harkened back to their Dominion title match a few years ago, and really great stuff in that matchup, and it had the heel finish that I talk about when people are like, oh, heels need to cheat. It's like, yeah, it was just a sleight of hand. The ref was out of position for 1 second. Sonata was able to hit a low blow and then the deadfall to get the win after wrestling pretty much a clean match, the whole match. And it was like, that's how you do, a heel finish without a bunch of run-ins, without completely knocking the ref out. You just kind of get the ref slightly out of position, bam, take the quick shot and get the advantage. But that was a really fun match, one of the best matches of that night. So that was awesome. And then the Tsuji Shingo main event, I felt like was your classic G1 main event. I thought they did a lot of great stuff there. Shingo hitting the Takagi driver 98 on the floor to Tsuji. So he's working.
That was fucking nuts.
Yeah, so working over the head and neck of Tsuji throughout the match, and they both did each other's moves. Tsuji was doing pumping bombers, and Shingo did a Gene Blast, and Tsuji did a Made in Japan. So yeah, they're going back and forth with a bunch of big bombs there, and it was towards the end where Tsuji was able to use the Fire Blaster to get the win over Shingo.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've noticed is every single night and some people, there are some naysayers out there. I've seen them. I've seen y'all, the sickos that are hating. But by my estimation, there has been nothing but strong nights of the G1 so far. Mm-hmm. There's not a single night that I can look to. Now, we're only in the first 2 weeks, and we always talk about, by the time you get to night 10, night 11,
the dog days.
You're in fucking Waga and Beppu. It's a little different. But so far, there's been nothing but strong nights. That doesn't mean every single match has been good. That's not the case. But overall, nothing but good shows. And every single main event for the entirety of there's been no weak main events. There's been nothing but super strong main events. And this is 2 nights back to back where Tsuji, the reigning world champion, has faced off against other former world champions and just knocked it out of the park. And all the credit has to not all the credit, but you got to give credit to him as the guy that is carrying a large portion of the A block on his shoulders and delivering,
Yeah. And I'm kind of getting like some Okada-esque vibes from him. And, obviously, Okada is an all-time great, but I think Tsuji's great too. But what I mean is also, he's in a very similar spot to Okada, being a champion in the G1. Okada had to get a lot of main events, but also the comparison comes with like the crowd reaction. I feel like with Okada, even as the ace and the top guy and the champion, I feel like the crowd would always tend to cheer for whoever he was going against, because it was kind of like, well, it's Okada, you know, he's going to probably win. We want to see him lose, even if we like him. Like, we want to root for the underdog. And I feel like that's happening with Tsuji here. Like, Tsuji's not always getting, like, the big cheers and calls in these matches. Like, Sonata match, you know, House of Torture Sonata was starting to get more cheers, and the crowd was, like, really getting excited and getting behind Sonata. In the Shingo match, I felt the crowd was more in favor of Shingo. And, you know, some people might see it as a detriment, but I think it's actually Tsuji's kind of elevated himself to that Okada-like role where, yeah, people are seeing him as the man, and they want to see, you know, the underdog, the other guy, kind of get one up on him.
I mean, I think that's a really great comparison, and I think it's apt. There's another historical point and comparison to make to that as well, though. The idea that there are mixed reactions or even potentially rejections from the crowd is not the negative that one might think it should be or could be. Historically, from the past decade, probably now, of course, I'm not naming every single big star, but there's 4 prime examples that I can point to of top end stars that were ace level guys that carried the company that all had to deal with major crowd rejection before they basically arrived as top guys. And that's Hiroshi Tanahashi, Tetsuya Naito, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Kazuchika Okada. Now, these were all varying situations. They're not identical. They occurred at different periods of their careers, and they lasted for different lengths of time, but they all happened. And if you ever go back and you listen to some of the Tanahashi Ace of the Universe series that I was doing, and I am planning to go into a second season of that, this is something that he talks about, is that, like, in domestic Japan and New Japan in the modern era, there will be some sort of rejection period that top stars have to overcome to be the top guy. And if they don't care about you enough to reject you, that's actually a bad indicator that you're probably not going to be domestically one of the top, like, carriers of the company. So it's actually a positive sign, because if they don't care, you know, it goes to the John Cena thing. Remember when he was like, yeah, I'm here just trying to get reactions. Like, if they're not impassioned and they don't care, then they just don't react whatsoever.
Yeah, and I feel like Tsuji's been handling it great. And I feel like post-match, you know, when he's doing either his promo or he's walking off losing, like, I feel like the crowd is receptive to him and he's getting reactions. And I feel like, yeah, his closing promo against Shingo on night 6, I feel like the crowd was into him. So to me, it just seems like kind of like during the match he's getting rejected, but then afterwards, like, the crowd does accept and see him as the top guy. He doesn't look shook at all when they're not cheering him. He goes out there, he delivers. He even kind of, I feel like he kind of leans more heelish when in this match. You know, Shingo was going for the, you know, the kita, you know, and then Tsuji stopped it. The crowd booed, so he kind of knew the score here, and so kind of, you know, was a little bit more heel leaning throughout the match.
Yeah, it's Bret Hartism.
Yeah. So I think Tsuji has been great. Another guy that I would throw up there as a potential MVP of this block, of the whole tournament. And, you know, sitting at 4 points, he's, you know, similar spot as Goto. He's going to need to reel some wins off here in the next couple of weeks. But again, as a champion, I have a hard time seeing him, go 2-3 in the next 5 matches.
Yeah, and he's had 4. I mean, Sonata going into it wasn't a guy that I would consider being, you know, a tough, unwinnable match. But from a kayfabe perspective, he's had the only 4 former world champions in his block. Speaking from New Japan, that is. You know, we don't count Jake Lee, that Triple Crown shit, that Noah GHC shit, that don't count.
Trash.
That Noah trash. So, I mean, in a kayfabe perspective, everybody else that he's going to be facing are kind of unproven guys. So I'm sure he's going to take at least 1, maybe 2 more losses, but I could see it being more like 1 and a draw or something like that. But he's probably going to go on a tear for the remainder of the tournament.
Yeah, I highly expect him to end at 12 points somehow. Whether he gets through or not, we'll see. But I think he'll definitely be a guy that will be in contention and be at top of the block. Well, another guy that's in a similar position with 4 points is Boltin Oleg, the NJPW Strong Openweight Champion. Night 4, defeating Shingo Takagi in 1910. And then night 6, the aforementioned match against Konosuke Takeshita, where he ate a loss to Takeshita in 1420.
Yeah, the beloved white man of Shinihan. He gets the pass. I think it's because he doesn't really speak English. That might have something to do with it. I don't know. maybe it's the muscles. But Oleg, man, we've been wanting the type of performances out of him that we're getting from him in this tournament. That's not to say that he hasn't had great matches in the past. He has, but we've been waiting like, hey, when are they going to utilize him? When are they going to push him? When are they going to kind of take some of the training wheels off and let him do what we think he's capable of? And it finally feels like that's happening.
Yeah. I remember like his first G1, we, kind of noticed, they were very short, very templated, kind of cookie cutter plug and play matches. And they're a la
Aaron Wolf.
Yeah. But even though we'll get to Wolf, I feel like Wolf is given a little bit more breathing room than actually Boltin was. I felt like Bolton's were really formulaic and kind of, you stick to this, and some of his matches were kind of very similar in that G1. But obviously, Boltin has, grown leaps and bounds since then. And he is absolutely killing it here night after night. We talked about the Takeshita match, the Shingo match, VOW, talk about dumb jock wrestling. Well, this is what it was, two beefy guys just, dropping each other on their heads and throwing suplexes. And Boltin has had some really great performances here. From a kayfabe perspective, I think he needs to think about changing up the kamikaze, because both nights when he goes for the the full out running kamikaze, both Shingo and Takeshita were able to grab the top rope to avoid getting hit by that full on and getting some counters to that. So, and you mentioned earlier, he's the kamikaze is not getting the full win. So I think normally when that happens, we see guys kind of develop a new finisher. We saw that with Tsuji. The Gene Blaster is not getting it done, so he has the Fire Blaster now. And so I think Boltin needs to come up with something that's actually gonna put guys away.
Yeah, man. He's fucking awesome. Like, there's not much more I could say about it. The match with Shingo was the hard hitting, never affair that you would want it to be. And we've talked recently about how Shingo is sort of this litmus test where it's like, if you can't overcome Shingo, then you kind of are not really in that main event space. But if you can defeat Shingo, then that's a qualifier that you can start probably being in that conversation. So him getting the clean win over Shingo, that was a huge win. Even if when it all, shakes out at the end of the tournament, he's not in contention. Maybe he would be, I don't know. The fact that he got that win, that's a huge step up in his career. And then the match with Takeshita, we already talked about it, but those two guys, they just make magic together, man. Like that. Yeah. I don't know. Like, do you think that he's Takeshita's best opponent in New Japan?
Either him or
probably Tsuji.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably Tsuji, but I feel like people sleep on the fact that Boltin might be his best opponent here.
Yeah, they've always gone out and have great matches, especially at a time where Boltin was still, kind of learning on the job and, trying to develop. Him and Takeshita just always seem to have really great chemistry, especially my favorite match of theirs is the New Beginning, Saka match. Like that match just was incredible. But I mean, every time they've gone out there, it's been really great stuff. So again, Boltin here in a very similar situation as the last few guys we mentioned. Also, that Shingo match was also a main event. So that's also a pretty big deal there to beat a former world champion in the main event of the show. And we've mentioned,
what night was that? Night 6?
Night 4.
Okay, so I was mistaken. For some reason I because we don't have the rundown of the evenings in front of us. I was thinking the Sonata match against Tsuji was a main event, but at its like 14-minute and change runtime, that makes a little bit more sense. And obviously we're reviewing 4 nights of action here.
Yeah, the Sonata Tsuji match was a semi-main that night.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, big main event win for Boltin, and we kind of talked about it from Chicago. You know, Boltin starting to pop up in these semi-main events and main event positions here. So I think he's gonna be a player in this block. I don't know if that means for sure he's getting through, but I expect him to be a guy that has a pathway to the semifinals coming in on the last night.
In the past, we have talked about, and I don't think we're quite there right now. I'm not saying this to denigrate the current crop of young lions or those who are on excursion, because they've got a lot of talent. But there was one period here a couple years back where when you were looking at all the LA Dojo guys and then the Noge Dojo guys, it was like, holy shit, they've got this, these swaths of talent that we're going to have to figure out how do we bring them all up accordingly. And now we're kind of getting to that funnel neck where that's starting to happen. And the guys that 3 years ago, everyone was like, why aren't they pulling the trigger? Why aren't they pulling the trigger? Well, granted, some of those criticisms were probably valid, but we are starting to, reap the benefits of all of these different guys coming up at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stars in the making, but you do have to hope and believe that it's like, yeah, can Oleg Boltin be a player? Yes. But do we need the booker to be competent enough to balance all of the, having a wealth of talent, a wealth of riches is a good problem to have,
mm-hmm.
but it's this fine balancing act to figure out how do we acquiesce to the veteran talent that we have who are trying to protect their spots and also elevate the young generation, which there's multiple of them. There's at least 6 or 7, maybe 8 guys that you could possibly see being big names in this company. And Oleg Boltin is one of those guys. And you're like, I hope that they don't fucking, they always say like Tony fumbled. I hope Gato doesn't fucking fumble any of these dudes, because we've already lost enough talent in the past, 5 years. We need these guys to work out, and Oleg is one of them.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, he's in a good spot, and his last match of the tournament on the last A block night, he has Great Okan. So that's to me like a winnable opponent for him. So that could be his ticket through, or it could be Okan maybe being spoiler for him and keeping Oleg out.
Yeah, I'm excited for the rest of his tournament.
Yeah. Well, another guy at 4 points, the silent gesture, Jake Lee. So he's sitting 2-2, night 4, defeating Goto, and night 6, losing to Sonata by countout.
Yeah, I don't fuck with this racist who puts on blackface, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we had a question from Navith. Who is better, Jake Lee or the Painmaker?
I haven't seen the Painmaker in a while. I guess he made an appearance last night at the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I didn't watch the pay-per-view last night, but yeah, it was the Painmaker, Chris Jericho against Ciampa. I heard it was a very hard-hitting, plunder match.
I didn't watch that show either. I actually tried to put it on. It's always hard on Sunday nights because House of the Dragon is also airing. So it's like, even if I put it on, I'm going to have to pause it for an hour. Plus, I know they start the shows at 7 now, it looks like.
Well, this one started at 7, yeah.
Yeah, but they should all, if they're going to go on at night, start at 7. But I'm still not going to stay up till midnight to watch this shit when I got to work the next day.
Yeah, and I've watched pretty much every other AEW pay-per-view this year, but this one just kind of felt like it wasn't supposed to be there. And I mean, there were some good matches on the card, but it wasn't a standout, blow away, attractive card, and it just kind of seemed like it was thrown together. It kind of just felt like a cash grab. All right, we're just gonna, because it was supposed to be the Kenny MJF match, then that got moved, so it just kind of felt like they kind of threw something together at the last minute.
Here's the thing with that being a cash grab. It's like, all right, it's a cash grab for people that are paying for the shows. I prepaid for the shows. I've got my AEW, and they've gone out of their way. Now, did I go through legal but unwanted means to obtain my AEW? Yes, I did. Is it legal? It's absolutely 100% legal, but they are throwing up roadblocks to prevent you from watching the shit. And I've already paid for the year, so it's not a cash grab for me. It's like the old network days. I already own the shit, but it's like they got rid of the app. They region coded the app, and you can't use a VPN. It's device specific. So the app is gone for me. It says your device, even though I'm in Indonesia. I literally, they're like, your device is no longer, so it's like, okay, well, I can't use the fucking app. And then when you try to play it off of the website, bro, we paid extra to get super duper high speed in this place. If you notice, there's been, since I moved into the new house, there's been no choppy chop. It's been pretty good. I can't stream the shit. It is not working well on the website, and I can't cast it to my TV. And I have cast the other shows in the past, but for some reason, the cast just won't work. And I cast shit from super duper sketchy websites, clearly with no issues all the time. It's not an issue on my end. It's not my internet. It's not my Chromecast. It's their website. Like, it's not up to par. It's worse than the ESPN app at this point. It's worse than Paramount. It fucking sucks. So yeah, that's the other thing is, like, I didn't watch the show. A friend of mine, I won't say any names, but a friend of mine, like, I complained in a group chat, and a friend reached out and they're like, well, you could try over here. And I was like, hey, I understand, you sending me the link. I appreciate it, but I'm not going to sail the high seas for some shit that I already own. Like, y'all don't want to make it accessible to me because I'm using legal workaround means. That's fine. Like, I just won't re-up with you next year. Like, fuck y'all.
So Jake Lee.
Yeah, so Jake Lee, I mean, we've already talked about the match with Goto. There's not much to speak about there. The match with Sonata was interesting. Oh, and to answer Navis' question, I mean, Painmaker Jericho, I'm not even really watching AEW, and I know he's in the middle of a feud with Ciampa, but like, it's going to be Jericho 11 times out of 10. Like, there is no situation where Jake Lee is better than Chris Jericho.
Yes, a wise man once said, never count out Chris Jericho.
The match with Sonata, though, was interesting given the fact, and this was somebody who they alluded to on commentary. Jake Lee did some some press. I don't know if it was one of those interviews on NJPW World, it probably was, but he talked about desiring to wrestle Sonata because they're kind of two sides of the same coin. Both of these guys are not dojo guys. They started outside of the company. They spent their formative years in All Japan, and both have suffered major career setbacks due to injury and had to take time off and have had to like kind of reinvent themselves. Both former world champions, lots of success, but there's a lot of gimmickry there. There's a lot of comparison points. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think the match with Sonata and Jake Lee was anything to write home about. Probably so far Sonata's worst match of the tournament.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have to say this too, Jeremy. I don't think Jake Lee's been good by any means whatsoever, but I do need to give credit where credit's due. He's solidly mid in this tournament.
Yeah.
He is relying on a lot of gimmicks, but the matches are being kept fairly short. He's being kept pretty low on the card. He's kind of fulfilling a quasi, it's not comedy per se, but a quasi night off Yano role in the block. Mm-hmm. And we've seen him have much, much, much worse matches all year long. This is like the most motivated Jake Lee's probably been. It doesn't look like he is, but comparatively speaking, this is the best he's looked all year.
Yeah, and this match with Sonata was definitely a Yano tribute match with the finish. We had Sonata tying up Jake Lee with the Paradise Lock in the guardrails and then tied him up to make sure he was extra stuck in there to get the count out victory. But yeah, so yeah, Jake Lee, I'll see. I mean, if you're just cherry picking, I can't recommend any of his matches for you to go out of your way to watch. But yeah,
not for this week.
Yeah, he's not been as bad, like you mentioned, that as he can be. And I feel like there's been less of the whole, grab the glove and the monkey and all the other stuff he's been doing. Still not great, but a little bit more palatable. And so yeah, so not the best action here, but he eats a loss to Sonata. He got a win over Goto, and again in a very similar spot with the rest of the guys that are in 4 points. However, I really don't see Jake Lee as a guy that's going to soar. I feel like he's a guy that I could see going 2 and 3 in the next 5 matches.
Maybe, but they're giving him some pretty significant wins over bigger names. I know this is a little bit of a more star-studded block, but it does speak to me that I'm like, remember how you talked about how sneaky they're being with Takeshita?
Mm-hmm.
This is the other side of that. Like, they're kind of being sneaky with Jake Lee in a way. I loved the reaction he had at the finish of the Sonata match, where it's like, he got beat by that count out, nefarious means. He wasn't even mad. He just had this like smirk. He's like, game's got to respect game.
Yeah,
like,
you got me.
Motherfucker got me.
So we'll see what happens with Jake Lee. But yeah, I'm hoping, it's not the case where, he sneaks his way in the last night. And I do think he has, last night he has Tsuji on the last night.
We're before we talk about the next guy, I just recalled for sure that night 4 was the night where we had HENARE on the call, because I'm remembering based on the match that we're about to talk about that he was on the call for that match.
Yeah. So up next, another guy that's sitting at 4 points is the Grip Oiwa. So night 4, Oiwa defeated Great Okan in 13:27, and then night 6, he lost to Yuto-Ice in 15:18.
The match with Great Okan was not anything to write home about. Again, Okan primarily relying on gimmickry. There is a story that's going on with him where it's like he's tapping into this more vicious, underhanded side of himself. And who knows, maybe if he wants to become New Japan's Abdullah the Butcher and start stabbing folks in the head and drawing blood, maybe I'll enjoy his work a little bit more than I currently am. Like, let's not do the half measure. Like, you want to be Great Muda, you want to be, Killer Khan, fucking just go all the way with it. Like, let's get hyper violent with this shit. Let's stop doing half measures and comedy and all that. But, Oiwa came in with taped up ribs. And so the whole story was Great Okan putting claws on his ribs and kicking him in the ribs and attacking him with chairs. And he pretty much dominated the vast majority of the match. And Oiwa was just, having to weather the storm and kick out of everything. And that's where I recall HENARE being on the call. And ultimately what was Great Okan's undoing is he had taken the corner pad off of one of the corners, the turnbuckles, and Oiwa was able to counter him into the turnbuckle and then hit I don't know the name of the pinfall. Sometimes there's like things that we know what they are, but he did a version of the pin that Darby Allin does. He calls it, I forget.
Yeah, he called it the Roy Clutch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've seen him hit this many times. He throws him into the turnbuckle. He hits the exposed steel, and then he hits the Roy Clutch at 13:27. And the reason I remember HENARE being on the call, because he was like, what a cheater, after like Great Okan had cheated the entire night. But this match was not great. And this was the second of 2 matches on night 4 where like I booted up night 4 and I was like, man, those first 2 matches were kind of slogs. And then we hit 3 classics back to back to back. And I'm like, all right, it kind of weighs itself out. But yeah, the Oiwa Okan match was nothing to write home about.
Yeah, and Okan has just been not enjoyable. Just been a lack of effort there, or just you can mention a little bit more, too much, gimmickry. And I'm honestly, you mentioned him kind of, taking the evil baseball chair spot, but I do kind of get like New Japan Cup 2020 vibes where like that tournament Evil came in and he's like, just kind of up the cheating, up the chair shots. And that's kind of what Okan's kind of doing here, but also he's not getting the same kind of push as Evil got. So not the best outing there for Oiwa, but he got the win. But then night 6, we talked about it last week that, this was going to be a banger with Oiwa and Ice. And that's what we got, Oiwa, his, the rage was kind of his downfall here. He started the match. He wanted to, fight Yuto on the streets. Yuto-Ice is a street fighter. He went out to the ramp and like, let's start it here. And again, he was trying to go, strike for strike, blow for blow. And, use his, his power, his lariats to try and knock out Yuto-Ice, who had been getting knocked out a lot in this tournament. But obviously Yuto is the better striker, while Oiwa is the better grappler. But Oiwa kind of abandoned the grappling to try and go toe-to-toe Yuto-Ice, but ended up eating a Cruella in the end.
Yeah, most of the people that have defeated Yuto-Ice in this tournament did so via a game plan, whether that was the overwhelming power of Oleg Boltin, or the neck focused offense from Takeshita. But Oiwa is another one of these young Reiwa guys. He has a point to make, and he's a hybrid, and he could go different ways and kind of dictate the pace of the match. But Yuto-Ice, he wanted to take him on that wrestling high. And Oi was like, how high can you go?
Yeah.
Anything you can do, I could do better. And that was his undoing. And these two guys have had a lot of history in their tag team matches with one another this year. There's a lot of heat there. And that was, like you said, it was Oi was undoing, was his, basically his hubris, the idea that I'm going to beat this guy on his terms. And Oi was like, not today. And really big needed win for Yuto-Ice to kind of get back into the win column in the tournament. But yeah, Oiwa, man, I know that the Okan match wasn't anything to write home about, but so far he's had a really great tournament as well. And the Yuto-Ice match, I don't know, some people will probably, I know that a lot of people love the Shingo match, and I thought that was very, very good too. But I feel like the Yuto-Ice match, I don't know, I just love that pairing.
Yeah, definitely, great styles pairing, and it's a great story between both of them. And also it's, Oiwa very similar to his, mentor in Zack Sabre. We've seen Zack where he tries to strike with people he shouldn't strike with, and he gets in trouble and has to go back to the grappling. But Oiwa never went back really to the grappling here, and just kind of continued to go blow for blow with Yuto-Ice.
Yeah, tough, painful lessons to learn for the young whippersnapper.
Yeah. Then next up, Great Okan, also with 4 points. Like we mentioned, night 4, losing to Oiwa at night 6, defeating Hiroki Goto. And we've talked about him a lot, and yeah, I just feel like, he is one of the low ends, match quality-wise, of this block, just not giving the great effort. And it's so crazy because, as a young lion, we were like, man, this guy is going to be great. He's going to, fill that Ishii roles, that's this kind of burly brawler, and it's, really far from those days.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, and here's the nice thing with our format, Jeremy, I don't even know if we have to recap what matches they won or lost, because we've already talked, at least at this point, because we've already talked about, we've reviewed all of these matches, so we could probably just go and speak about each person in turn for the rest of this block. But Okan, I don't have much to say. I feel like we've given a lot of energy to him in these reviews, talking about his matches, maybe more than they were deserving of, but he is the low man of the block right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Jake Lee is not, knocking it out of the park, but he is performing higher than he has the rest of the year. That's not saying much, but Okan is phoning it in. And yeah, if you want to delve into the character of it all and you want to talk about motivations and developments, that's fine. But like at the end of the day, it's about a bell that's going to ring and two guys that are in there, and Okan is sticking up the joint. The one time that he really even turned it up in this tournament a couple years ago was because he knew that he was most likely, I have to assume, is he knew he was getting a push. He knew that he was going to get big wins and that he was going to make it into the play-ins.
Mm-hmm.
And with it being very clear that that's not happening this year, he just is not a motivated talent whatsoever. And my one piece of advice is, like I said earlier, he's a guy that with his gimmick, his look, he would fit into 1970s New Japan like a glove. You know, he needs to just amp that part of it up and basically cut his losses. You know, the smartest thing that Yano ever did was realize, I'm not ever going to be the top guy. Let's just fulfill the role that I have and make as much money as we can and, you know, have as long of a career as possible. That's what Okan needs to do. It's time for Okan to up the gimmickry even more. He needs to start bloodying people and become the wild man. And, you know, we haven't had a wild man since, what's his face? What's wrong with me?
Oh,
sometimes I just,
Iska.
Yeah. Since Iska left, like, we haven't had anybody that's the wild man of the company. It's time for him to degenerate and lose his mind. And just, you know, it doesn't have to be an Iron Glove, but find something, man, because not saying I want to watch your matches, and this isn't going to inspire me to watch your matches more, but, you know, if you walk around swinging a chain and going through chairs and stabbing people with forks, at least that's something, you know. Let's get some blood going, because I'm sick of this shit. I don't want to watch you anymore. Yeah,
definitely give a little bit more interest. It's frustrating because, you know, we could have had Yoshihashi in here. We could have had Taichi in here, but here you are taking up a spot, wasting time, wasting energy. So, yeah. Well, let's move on.
Could have had Kevin Knight in here. Isn't he dual contracted?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Let's talk about the pro wrestling high. Yuto-Ice also with 4 points. Like we mentioned, he lost to Takeshita on night 4, defeated Oiwa on night 6.
Yeah, I mean, bro, Yuto-Ice, we've already talked about the matches themselves, but I'm loving his tournament. Like,
yeah,
it's I don't want to say it's Ishii-esque in this, because when you talk about like Ishii's tournaments, his are usually just like, when he was in these tournaments, he was just a guy that was like, there wasn't much story too much. It was just like, he's the Stone Pitbull.
I want to smash.
He wants to smash. You know, there is a little bit of that with Yuto-Ice, but his matches are, you know, appointment viewing. Every single match is been spectacular, but there's also a character story arc, and it's the kind of character arc that I can really dig into, where it's like he has this passion, he has this belief in himself, he has this you know, this belief in who he is as a performer and what he wants wrestling to be, this vision.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't have the experience to carry it out just yet. Like, he's still learning as a singles guy. And his vulnerability is what makes him so interesting. A lot of other guys, they lose and they want to stay protected. They got to banana peel it. They got to find a way to stay strong and blah, blah, blah. And this is a guy who's like, I know who the fuck I am, and I don't need a banana peel. You want to beat me? It's like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, you're going to have to kill me, but they're going to love me more than you when it's over.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing. It is chef's kiss. It's incredible.
Yeah, you know, people want to talk about, you know, storytelling. There's not enough stories in wrestling. There's no stories in New Japan. But yeah, they're telling a great story with Yuto-Ice. And so all you mentioned, yeah, this, you know, obviously super dominant tag team wrestler. He's coming into this singles tournament. He doesn't have a stamina. He doesn't have Oscar to tag out to when things go south. And yeah, he's just riding high on his ambition, as he likes to say, and you know, his street fighting skills, and he's just going out there and throwing things against the wall, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And so it's just been, a great kind of story arc to follow him in this tournament. And then Yes, everything, the presentation, his new theme song is great. The white gear, the crowd is just like super into him. There's little kids throwing up the middle fingers and doing his whole little hand thing, and the crowd is just super into him. And I've been starting to hear some of the Yuto-Ice haters kind of having to turn, walk back some of the stuff they're saying, because this guy's coming out here. He's having very good matches. He's super charismatic. The crowd is into him every night. They're living and dying with everything he's doing. And he's a star in the making. And whether you like the gimmick or not, whether you like the team or not, like, it's hard to deny that this guy is on a stardom trajectory, unless they screwed things up. But he has the crowd in the palm of his hands. He has a unique character, a unique look, and great in the ring.
I think they will wind up having very different careers, and I don't think it will be that. It's not a 1-for-1 comparison, Jeremy. So I don't want people to get this twisted when I say this. But if you were a Western viewer and you were like, who is the closest comparison point from a Western audience to guys that I've experienced, that you can kind of explain who this guy is, it's Eddie Kingston. Somebody who is a hothead. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He has supreme confidence in who he is. He knows he has shortcomings, and there's an underdogness to himself. And he's not always a perfect game planner, but he's a guy that gets the job done anyways. And he's beloved because he's not supposed to be here,
Yeah.
He's like the everyman. That's kind of a little bit Yuto-Ice.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty great comparison. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I think that's a perfect, Western comparison. So Yuto rocks, and he's, with that win over Oiwa, he's in a good spot now with 4 points. So again, we have this log jam of 4 points. He can easily, if he can rack some wins up, be in a good spot to get into the semifinals.
Everybody in the block, just for the record, we're about to finish up, but everybody's got 4 points except for the guy at the bottom, Shingo, and the guy at the top, Takeshita. Again, parody-based booking of Gedo.
Yeah. And we had a question from Black Lesnar. Does Yuto-Ice know he named a move after a bum wipe?
I don't know what he's referring to.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Did he name his move Dude Wipes? What? I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Thanks for the question, Black Lesnar.
Next up, Sonata, also 4 points, and Sonata 2 wins in a row here, like I mentioned, defeating Yota Tsuji in the semi-main event night 4, and then defeating Jake Lee by countout. And we had a question from Dark Soldier. It says, how is it that Sonata has been a highlight of the G1, yet Okan has been a big blah? Does Sonata have the attitude of I ain't going back? And can someone like Doki have that attitude too?
I don't know. I mean, you have to wonder if, okay, it seems to be that if what we have predicted is to come to pass, meaning the former champions in this block that have defeated Tsuji are going to go on to challenge him, and Sonata was aware of that, that might be a motivating factor to be like, okay, kind of got to kick it back into high gear. I can't sit here at this juncture of 2026 and say I believe in Sonata. I played that game one too many times over the past decade, and it's burned me too many times. Am I enjoying his tournament? Yes. Is he trying his ass off? Yes. And do I have belief that he's probably going to have a Q3, Q4 title challenge against one Yota Tsuji? I think so. And so that probably means that he has to, like I mentioned earlier with Goto, kind of finish in a respectable spot in the point totals. And I think that speaks to him getting not only the win over Tsuji, but a win over Jake Lee. It's bigger than it seems like, because like I mentioned earlier, Jake Lee's kind of getting sneaky big wins. Sonata beating him is a pretty big win for Sonata and his campaign. But like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just the fact of like, okay, this is maybe my last big push and I really need to make something of it. Or I was having a conversation just briefly in our Discord earlier with MJ, shout out to the Discord daddy. And he was like, sometimes when you're on the brink, you only got one life to live. And when you think this whole thing's getting taken away from you, then it motivates you to come back harder. I don't know I don't know the man. I can't speak to what Sonata's motivations are, but like, he is trying much harder. And this might sound a little rough because I know that he tried his best to carry those Reiwa guys when he was champion, but he's trying harder right now than he did when he was champion in the G1 back in 2023.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking, like the same lines as MJ. I'm wondering if, this, I feel like when guys come back from injury, it's kind of one or two things. It's like they're so like broken by the injury that they kind of become back a shell of themselves, and they just kind of either kind of phone it in because they don't want to re-aggravate the injury, or they just know like I'm cooked. Like this injury is so bad, like I cannot be what I was. Or guys come back from injury and they're like, all right, like I almost lost my career. I need to go out here and YOLO, never say never and no regrets, and go out here and have a great rest of my career. And maybe
no regrets.
Yeah. And maybe that's part of it, even though, the first match back with Takeshita wasn't that great, but yeah.
That match with Takeshita sucked. Like it is so crazy where he was, and maybe that's just knocking off ring rust, but like he didn't look good in Mexico. He didn't look good against Takeshita. And then suddenly it's like, oh, he's hitting, turning body presses and, Shining Wizard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And, here's the last thing I will say. So you mentioned Sonata getting that win over Tsuji. And I agree with you where you mentioned like sometimes it's okay for heels they don't have to muck it up entirely. They can just, briefly cheat. There's truth to that. But there is a storyline element in the character psyche of Sonata where he's coming out, and he's one of the best guys at this. I'm not always in love with it, but the fans who are like the we work stiff type guys who they love the nuance and the character motivations of guys. You look at Sonata when he came back and he's, painting the tapestry of all the iterations of his career and all the groups he's been in, all the characters he's portrayed. And each night you don't know what Sonata you're getting. And the one thing that's been a constant is this push-pull, this tug of war as to who he is, what is his identity as a wrestler and a man. And I know I'm waxing a little poetical here, but this is the story they're telling. It's right in front of our eyes where he is trying to work the way he used to work when he was on top with just 3 guys, just 4 guys, just 5 guys, whatever the fuck. But he can't get it done. And then he is suddenly at the end of his matches, degenerating, whether it's a guitar shot, whether it's a low blow, to go back to the old tactics. And he's not, overdoing it in these matches the way he was prior to the injury. But almost every single one of these matches involves him working the classic style, trying his ass off, not being able to get it done and being like, all right, I'm going to have to pull something out of the bag of tricks to get the job done.
Yeah, because he unloads the chamber here. Yeah, he's doing the Shining Wizards. He's doing the moonsault press. He did the deadfall, I think, twice to Tsuji, and Tsuji kicked out. Tsuji
kicked out of one.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm wrestling clean. I'm throwing everything out there. Like, man, screw this. Eat this low blow.
like the good men at Coldplay once said, when you try your best but you don't succeed. Mm-hmm. That's Chris. Shout out to Chris Martin. That's what's going on here with Sonata.
Yeah. And then last but not least in the A block, the Rampage Dragon Shingo Takagi 1-3 with 2 points. And this is definitely somebody whose positioning is quite opposite to their performance. Shingo has again been one of the best performers in this block. We talked about it already. Great matches with Bolton Oleg, losing to Bolton on night 4, and losing to Tsuji night 6. Both of those matches rocked, and again, as usual, Shingo, one of the best performers in his block.
I feel confident he's going to turn it around. I don't feel confident he's going to like be in the play-ins, but I think he's going to turn it around. And all the same, losing to Oleg Boltin, that's a potential title shot that he has lost. He lost to Tsuji. That's another champion that he's lost to. I am wondering, given where he's at in terms of trajectory and everything, could he be one of the guys that beats Takeshita to potentially open up a TV title shot for later this year?
I think that makes sense, and I would love that. And I think Shingo would be a perfect guy if they want him to, beat Takeshita. A great guy to be in that 15-minute time limit role. Can have some, really explosive 15-minute matches. So I like that idea. But yeah, I expect, he's at that 3-loss point here, so I can easily see Shingo rolling off 5 wins in a row, 4 wins, getting either that 5-4, getting to that 6-3 spot, and potentially getting a slide in the semifinals. He's been getting a ton of. He had 2 main events here back to back. I don't obviously know what the rest of his schedule is, but it seems like he's been put in kind of bigger positions, and potentially, he could be a guy that's going to be a player come the final night.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he is in those main events, that does probably speak to something, but I'm not right now a believer that he's going to go deep in the tournament. At the same time, Shingo's a name, and historically, when someone starts with a name like him that starts this low, that could be a key indicator that they are going to go on a run for the remainder of the tournament. That's a Gato trope. I'm not 100% committed to the idea that that's what's happening here, but you just kind of never know,
Yeah, he has Sonata on the last night, so I guess, it kind of depends on Sonata's trajectory. If Sonata ends up eating a lot of wins, that could potentially be a win-and-you're-in situation between both of them, or it could end up being, one of them trying to spoil the other one.
So let's look at this just very briefly. And I'm not going to name the nights. I'm just going to kind of go through. You got Tsuji-Ice as a main event. You got Goto Takeshita. You got Tsuji Boltin. And then Shingo and Yuto-Ice. That's a surprising main event. That's actually kind of cool. Takeshita Oiwa. So Takeshita's starting to get back into those main events. And then obviously night. And actually, I'm sorry. I believe night 16, that is scratch that. That's Takeshita Oiwa. That's one of those night. That's the final A block night. So we don't know what the lineup is, but
yeah.
Shingo doesn't have any more main events the remainder of the tournament. So that might tell us something.
Yeah. But also, match quality wise, I think he'll continue to be one of the top producers in this block. But yeah, I do expect him to pick up some wins in this next week.
And I don't mean to sound disrespectful here, but to call him a top producer, and again, this is in no way negating the quality of his matches, because he might be a top producer. But bro, we went through 2013 to 2019. I used to read these articles, 411 Mania and, Voice of Wrestling and stuff like that, where people would be like, the top 50 matches from this year's G1, and it would be nothing but 4-star lineups. We are starting to get to that point again in this A block and also in the B block, to where it's like, I don't know if Shingo is the top producer. Oiwa's knocking it out of the park. Tsuji's knocking it out of the park. Takeshita's knocking it out of the park. So is Yuto-Ice. So is Oleg Boltin. Like, they're on fucking fire, and he's in that mix. But the outliers are the guy. Sonata's knocking it out of the park. You got 2 outliers, and everybody else is performing to such a high level. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, this A block has been awesome, and yeah, they've been producing every night. And yeah, I have plenty of 4-star matches written down on my phone from this A block. So yeah, awesome stuff.
In business, there's no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. When you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on. Because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else: your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS, official shipping sponsor of the NHL.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Well, let's jump over to the B block. So first guy here that we'll talk about is 1/3 of the Never Six-Man champs, 1/2 of tag champs, and the New Zealand heavyweight champion HENARE, coming in 4-1, 8 points. Night 5 gets a win over Oscar in 11:46, and then night 7 defeats sold out Ren Narita in 10:59.
This has got to be the best run, kayfabe wise, of HENARE's history in the G1. I can't remember him racking up this many wins or ever sitting at the top of a block. I know he's in a 3-way tie, but sitting at 8 points, he's probably fairly close to getting his strongest points total ever. I haven't looked at the history, but I have to imagine he's pretty close there. I don't know that, and I'm not talking any shit here, but I don't know that the match with Oscar or Narita were like blow away. But again, they also were not main events. We're talking about sub 12-minute matches here, but they were very good. They got the job done. I think HENARE, was one of the guys that with Oscar didn't have to, we talked about some of the limitations for how they structure his matches. And with HENARE, they didn't have to do that. They could go out there and just be physical. Mm-hmm. It was a hard hitting affair and it was very enjoyable. And then with Ren Narita, him being able to kind of outsmart the tropes of the House of Torturism and just kind of get him the fuck out of there was, that was also kind of enjoyable. Mm-hmm. The last thing I'll say is with the Oscar match, there's this ingrained rivalry between United Empire and KOB revolving around the tag team titles, and him getting a singles win over Oscar really kind of solidified his role as like the senpai in the pecking order of things, and kind of just makes, he big brothered Oscar, even though Oscar is like his big little brother at this point.
Yeah, and I was expecting Oscar to get the win here. We saw Ice beat Ocon in the A block, so I was thinking maybe both Knockout Brothers would get a win, so that's your easy setup for a tag title. I think you can still probably get there with Ice's win over Ocon. But yeah, so HENARE getting that win over Oscar, like you mentioned, that was a very, it was short but very, physical, kind of in the paint kind of style of matchup. And then the Narita match was fine, and it was a lot of shenanigans, and Narita making the mistake of forgetting how hard the head of HENARE is, and the chair breaking over HENARE's head, and HENARE no-selling it and being able to put him away with the power bombs. So yeah, HENARE, he's kind of been, the quote-unquote good hand so far of this tournament. Like, he hasn't really had a ton of super blowaway matches that we've seen him have in the past with certain guys. But he's been very serviceable, very good, very hard hitting, very intense every night. And yeah, kind of a fresh take for him. Yeah, being at the top of a block. I don't expect him to stay here. Obviously, luckily he already has the Umino forfeit in the book. So he has 4 more matches left, and I mean, even if he wins one of those and loses 4, like you mentioned, 10 points, he's one way away from kind of being at that level you need to potentially be at to get through.
I think it's going to be more difficult in this block because everybody has that extra win that they're probably going to need 12, just mathematically. But yeah, you're right. Like, he's fairly close. I also think that because this is a hard hitting block and there are quite a few other guys that fit that mold a little bit closer that HENARE still probably has, even though I think he will start taking losses, he's got some standout matches remaining for the rest of his tournament.
Yeah.
Also, you have to wonder, like, who wants to be Oceania champion, Who wants to go down to New Zealand and fight this boy for the gold,
Yeah. So next up, also 8 points, is 44 caliber Drilla Moloney on night 5, picking up the win over Yuya Uemura, and night 7 getting a win over Callum Newman in 14-12.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like I didn't know that this man was handsome. It's not like I didn't know that he was shredded like a Greek god. But according to my wife, who walked in Sunday morning while I was watching the G1, Drilla Moloney is in fact hot. So just throwing that out there. Makes sense. Look at my skin complexion. You can only look at my skin complexion if you either follow me on social media or you are paying, to watch our videos live, or you watch us on YouTube. For many, many years, many of our listeners thought that I was a different nationality altogether. So, but I am olive skinned a la Drilla. So I'm not too surprised that she finds him to be handsome. I'm also ruggedly handsome. Unfortunately, he has a strong ass beard, which is something that my wife likes. And I got too much Native American in my blood. I'm never going to be able to do that quite as impressively as Drilla. I don't know. I might make a trip out to Turkey,
get it filled in,
see what they could do, maybe take some TRT. We'll see what we could do. But yeah, man, Drilla, he's killing it. Not just kayfabe wise, but he's having standout matches. And I know for the past couple of years, especially since he turned heavyweight, we've talked about like the improvements, the rapid succession of Drilla. And then, the question became, how are they going to use him and utilize him now that all the rest of the dogs have jumped ship? And he's like the one, standout from that group that has re-signed with the company. And here they are, they're giving him the push. He's getting meaningful wins, but not only having meaningful wins, but he's having great matches. And there was a time where we used to talk and be like, okay, the work is not up to snuff, but the look is outstanding and he needs to kind of improve. And then he did improve. And it was like, okay, he's like a really great hand. He's having very, very good matches. He's got a great look, but he's not quite up to that like house style main event level to where it's like, okay, he can work great matches yet. We're tipping the scale. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's AJ Styles or anything like that. He's not having match of the year caliber matches, but Jeremy, I got to imagine there's quite a few snowflakes on your, on your notebook there for this man.
Yeah, this guy, he's hitting the notebook quite often here, and yeah, he's becoming, the perfect, package. He's got the look, he's got the mic, he's got the work. The crowd is, very into him right now, and yeah, everything about Drilla is just hitting right now. And yeah, this past week, 2 really good matches here. The Yuya match, a rematch from their, New Japan Cup match this year that had the very controversial finish that some people liked, some people hated. But this match again was great, just like the New Japan Cup match. And, Uemura is trying to do, his classical, New Japan style and the arm drags and the wrestling. And Drilla was like, nah, hold this, elbow, hold these lariats, hold this gore. And yeah, he really leaned into the power game, and he hanged with Uemura on some of the grappling as well, and was able to hit the Drilla Killer to put him away. And then Callum Newman, he had to overcome all of the United Empire antics. Newman had Zane J out there with him, and he had Zane J, pulling the ref out the ring and distracting Drilla, but luckily young lion Daiki Nagai was in the corner of Drilla, and Daiki was able to clear out Zane J, which cleared the playing field for Drilla to put Newman away.
Did you ever see Zoolander?
Yeah.
Remember when they used to say Hansel? That's how I'm seeing it right now. It's like Drilla, and then I just want to come out and be like, he's so hot right now. Bro, this man, right? Like Yuya try to tie this man up, but those strong muscle fibers, people want to talk about jujitsu and be like, oh, it's all about, leverage. It's not about strength. Well, strength has something to do with it. It's kind of hard to tie up a man that's made out of concrete and granite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was glad to see him drop Yuya on his fucking dome. Not that I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of Yuya, but to make things right for what happened earlier this year,
Yeah.
And then he beat Gabe, which was surprising. Now he's beaten Callum Newman. We're talking about two of the best foreigners in the entirety of the company. And in the BB block, the British.
Yeah, the B1, as Charlton was saying.
He's just got Zack. If he can beat Zack, I don't think he's going to beat Zack. But if he beats Zack, best of the British, baby. Like, that's it. He's got it locked up.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's
and I thought that match with Callum, bro, I thought it ruled, bro. And there were people in our Discord that hated that match. And I don't understand. I literally don't understand why. Like, nobody seemed to be able to articulate what it was they didn't like about the match. But I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just the House of Tortureism of, yeah, you're having the ref bumps, you're having Zane J kind of come in and all this stuff. But I think the thing that kind of, made me overlook all of that was just the intensity of the work. Like, right outside of the interference, like, it was very hard hitting. They were brawling through the crowd, and Newman doing that crazy, dive over the barricade into the chairs.
He's got a death wish.
Yeah, that man.
Not only the bumps that he took into the chairs, but he also, I don't know if it's the same match or if it's the match against Zack, but he did a jumping dive drop kick where his head hit the concrete. Like, bro, kid's a damn fool, bro.
Yeah. So the match was very hard hitting, very intense. And yeah, it was, you did have the interference. You had the ref bump. You had two guys not in the match running in. However, I feel like it worked, and especially for Daiki Nagai, like, Daiki got a huge pop when he came in to make the save, did a big springboard drop kick to Zane J. There's a beautiful spinning tilt-a-roll DT to Newman, big suicide dive to Zane J. Like, it was a big kind of spot there for Daiki Nagai. And if anybody's been watching the undercard, like, Nagai's also been a highlight of the undercard stuff, teaming up with Unbound Company guys. So the nice little shine there for Daiki. But yeah, it was a very hard-hitting, intense matchup. Could it have been potentially better without the interference? Sure. But I think for this story of the match, and especially the rivalry with Daiki Nagai and Zane J as well, it played into their rivalry with both those guys cornering their guys. So a lot of story elements, as well as some good hard-hitting action. So yeah, good matchup there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, okay, would it be potentially more impactful to have Drilla just straight up beat Callum in a very hard fought singles match? Sure. I don't know that and maybe this speaks to the cowardice of, the way that they are very conservative in their booking, but it's like, I don't know that they're ready to have Drilla and Callum have a true out and out classic where Drilla goes over this guy. So instead, what you have to do is you still want to give him the win, but I don't want to call it a fake job because it's not quite that, but you do need some protections in place. You need something there that like hampers or lessens the impact just slightly. The win is still a win. It's still in the record books. If and when they ever face one another, he has the bragging rights. And I think that this will be a match they get back to eventually where they can do the real one. But it's like, there's been this Unbound Company UE feud. It's revolved around all of this cheating and outside interference. This guy has studied the tape. He understood what Callum was going to come in with as far as a game plan, and he outsmarted him. And I think it works, especially like what you said is like, okay, this trope of outside interference, kind of playing a role in matches. Oftentimes when that happens, what happens is guys lessen the intensity. They use it as an opportunity to kind of like catch a breather before they go into the finish of the match. That's not happening here. The intensity is getting heightened along with it reminds me of some of those Shingo versus Evil matches that were usually at the close of blocks where it's like, okay, it's the final payoff to Evil fucking around the entire year. And then finally you have a guy in a group that is figuring him out. It's just happening, early in the tournament. But I thought Drilla and Newman, is it an out and out classic? No, but I thought the match was really great. I truly did. And I was happy to see Drilla pick up that win there.
Yeah, and also it fits Newman's whole story too of him having to rely on the cheating and shenanigans, and it backfires. And that's kind of been part of the story where Ospreay is trying to get him to just rely on his merits and his in-ring abilities, but he's continuing to try and cheat and use St. J, and sometimes it kind of blows up in his face, which happened here. But yeah,
he's Sonata.
Yeah. But yeah, it was great to see Drilla get the win here and be in a very good spot, especially, with Umino out of this thing. I think it opens the door, especially with two guys going through. Drilla's in a very good spot. He's been elevated. He's kind of been in the global title mix, so he could be in a good spot to, advance here.
I mean, bro, being Gabe, I don't think that he will make it to the play-ins because he does. I think him picking up that win over Gabe means he's the natural future challenger for the white belt. But beating Gabe, beating Yuya, and beating Callum all in the same block, three of the absolute biggest names of the block, from a kayfabe perspective, you'd have to imagine that, he's tied at the top of the block, but he's got a stronger resume of wins than Gabe or HENARE do at this point.
Yeah, beats current global champion, beats New Japan Cup semifinalist, and beats New Japan Cup winner and former heavyweight champion. So he's looking huge, looking good. Yeah. Well, the third guy that's 4-1 with 8 points is the aforementioned IWGP Global Champion, the madman of the Death Riders and the Dogs, AEW legend Gabe Kidd. Night 5, defeating Aaron Wolf in 9:51, and Night 7, defeating Zack Sabre Jr. in 25:47.
So one of my absolute favorite aspects of Gabe Kidd this week was when he decided that, on Night 5, he's going to wrestle judo Olympic gold medalist and world champion Aaron Wolf. And he's like, fuck that. I'm walking out in a gi to fight this man, bro. I thought that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen anybody do in pro wrestling. I just loved that. I don't know how high I was on the Aaron Wolf match. We had questions last week. What does that look like? Mm-hmm. I still kind of have questions. It was a little bit more basic, maybe. And maybe this just speaks to the progression and where Aaron Wolf is in terms of his overall career trajectory and his growth. but I wasn't necessarily blown away by that match. It was good, but the Zack match was outstanding. Now, I don't believe personally that it was as good as the G1 match they had a couple years ago where Gabe got choked unconscious by Zack. But I didn't think it was far off. And my wife was watching this with me and she was like, and Gabe kept cussing, you know?
Yeah.
And she's like, why does he have to do that? And like, my wife's not in any way like a prude or shying away, it's not like she's got like Puritan ears, but like every other move is like a fuck you. she's like, what the hell, bro? Like, why? But I thought the match with Zack was outstanding. These two guys went to war, just battering one another. And Gabe's post-match comments, talking about Tony Khan putting him in, coach, that once he's done with this tournament, he wants to go to the real tournament, the Continental C2. Classic.
Yeah.
He spit on the Lion's mark, told Tanahashi to get fucked. Like, I don't know. I like this shit.
He did the ace pose in one of these matches. It went for a splash, a horrible splash, by the way. So the Gabe's character work has been great. Yeah, I popped 2 for him coming out in the gi and trying to get Wolf in his guard and stuff throughout the match. And yeah, obviously just the promo and everything, I think is working really well now. And like we kind of teased earlier, yes, the Gabe Kidd Zack Sabre Jr. match was a match I was talking about where I kind of had mixed feelings on it. And I don't know, like there was part of the time I was watching the match where I was like, what are they doing? Like, it's what they were doing was just not connecting with me. And then there was other parts.
What was it that was what was it that you were critical on or that wasn't connecting with you?
It just kind of felt like there were parts where it was dragging. And I don't think it helped that it was a smaller house because it didn't seem like the crowd was like actively like rabid into their match. And so like quieter crowd, it felt like some of the brawling was just kind of dragging. I'm just like, all right, and it's like, getting to 25 minutes. I'm like, what are we doing here? But then there were other parts where I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty compelling. And Gabe's dragging Zack into the whole strike game. They're exchanging the European uppercuts and strikes, and Gabe's letting his mouth, getting him into trouble, and Zack's working on the injured knee and tying him up. And so there was stuff I liked in the match too. And so I'm like in this weird place where I'm like, I thought there were parts of the match that were great, and then I thought there was parts of the match that dragged and were kind of boring.
Well, you're not alone. I mean, this was the match that I was in the Discord, and yeah, there were people that were critical of the Drilla Newman match on the semi of that evening, but there are people that just did not like Gabe versus Zack. And I was really surprised. Like, I couldn't understand why people didn't necessarily like that match. Some of the points that you brought up, I could understand that. The one thing with me was some of the community, the one drawback was some of the community theater shit with Gabe.
Yeah.
Being on the outside, being like, I used to look up to you. I respected you. And I'm like, bro, this is not, Revenge of the Sith, This is not Obi-Wan and fucking Anakin.
Yeah.
But putting that aside, I don't know, man. Like this, I know that the Takeshita and Oleg Boltin moment where they were grabbing each other's waistbands and throwing elbows was really cool. I thought that the slap exchanges between Gabe and Zack were even better. Like they were slapping the fuck out of one another. Like this, granted, not a great house, not the best crowd. If you are someone that is heavily influenced by crowd reactions, you might not be as high on the match. If you're somebody that hates AEW and hates the the edgelordism of Gabe Kidd, probably not going to like this, especially since he goes over fairly clean on Zack Sabre Jr. I think that also has something to do with why people didn't like it. But I thought this was so hard hitting. I was a little surprised at the finish that Gabe basically just hit this man with dual pile drivers kind of out of nowhere, and got him out of there. But they had gone through such a physical battle leading up to that moment that it worked for me. Like it still kind of felt like he caught Zack, and it could have been anybody's victory. I liked Gabe kicking out of the
Zack
driver. Like, I don't know, man. I thought this match fucking rocked.
Yeah,
and a lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah, that finish with the super combo where he did like the regular pile driver, he did a Death Rider, and then the drill a hole pile driver. Yeah, that was like the ultimate 3-punch combo there. Had Zack laid out. And I think another reason why I think the match was a little bit hard too was like it wasn't really a Zack Sabre match.
No.
It was more of a strike heavy. It was like Gabe dragged Zack into his style of matchup, which also was the downfall, I think, for Zack here. But also, I think what Zack does is great. And maybe I feel like their previous G1 was more of a Zack match. And I don't, maybe I was expecting more of that, maybe. I don't know. But I think Zack didn't.
I thought Zack was tying this man up. Like he had all the fucking limbs. Like maybe they weren't as long control segments as there's been in the past, but I thought that he was catching him with lots of creative counters and holds. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know who dictated the pace of who called the match or laid it out, I should say.
Yeah.
Might be honest, might be Gabe.
Yeah. And also Zack still had submission holds over catching. But I feel like sometimes a Zack match is more based off of like the in and out, like each guy's kind of countering more of the holds, where like this is like Zack would catch him, Gabe would get to the ropes, and then Gabe would rebound. It's like kind of back to a strike battle. There wasn't like kind of like almost this flow of like, all right, we're just kind of going in and out of these holes kind of a thing. But yeah. Either way, it was still a very good match. Obviously, some people think it was, great. And so I'm seeing a bunch of mixed reactions to the matchup here. But
well, it's funny because the way you review it makes it sound like you are a low man on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is like I seen people that just outright fucking hate the match and they thought it was terrible.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't sound to me like that's where you land on it at all.
No. I'm kind of in between the people who think it's terrible and people who think it's like a match of the year contender. I'm like, it was very good. There were some parts I didn't really like. There are some parts I liked a lot. But I'm still in the point of like, it's a very good match, probably low end notebook matchup. But yeah, it was good. Honestly, two super talented guys. And honestly, I think too, for me, it was just really the crowd really hurt it. They just were not into just a match like they were to. I feel like they were really into the Drilla Newman match. They just didn't give that same energy to Gabe and Zack.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at just the cage match right now. It looks like it's at 7.98 weighted. So maybe it's taken a little bit of a upwards bump. But yeah, a lot of the people that are low on this, a lot of the same sentiments that you have as far as like repetitive, uninteresting, non-impactful, strike sequences and a lot of lull periods, especially in the first half of the match. So yeah, I think again, what probably affects this more than anything else would be the two things that you pointed out. Like this wasn't Zack's style of match. Seems like Gabe probably laid it out and this crowd was not super enthused. If anything, one thing that probably could have helped is maybe not going 25 minutes.
Yeah. I think I get it's the main event and they're short one match. But maybe you give a little bit more to Drilla and Newman or some of the other matches or something like that.
For me, I think that I have this kind of classic UFC sensibility to myself about it, where it's like, you got the classic striker versus grappler and the grappler wants to take him down. And the striker's like, fuck no. Like every time you try to take me down, especially in Japan think about like Pancrase.
Mhm.
Like Pancrase was hybrid pro wrestling, so it was literally to the best of its ability. It was it was shoot style. Like shoot style wrestling still adhered to most of the same rules as pro wrestling. So like someone got into a submission hold, they would grab the ropes and they would actually get a rope escape. So like some of the best strikers in the world would get like taken down, put in a heel hook, and then they're going to grab for the rope and then keep these things standing and try not to go into a ground battle. I liked the aspect of it where it's like, nah, dog, I'm not going to the ground with you. Stand up, hold these elbows, hold these slaps, hold these European uppercuts. I'm going to drop you on your head. Like I thought it worked for me personally, but I could see why other people were down on it.
Yeah. We had a question from that dude named Menace. Says, do you think we eventually get Kidd versus Nakamura?
What?
Is there something I missed here? Were there Nakamura references that I missed here?
There must be something we're missing here. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see that match happening. Well, let's move on to the next guy.
We had another question here that you missed. Dwef Tai Angle asked, do you believe Gabe Kidd will one day main event Wrestle Kingdom? I'm going to say absolutely, positively, fucking no way.
Boy,
Never
no
happening.
way, boy.
I don't think that Gabe Kidd will, and I like Gabe Kidd a lot. I'm a big fan. I don't see him unless something changes, and who knows. This is a very self-assured guy and he's very talented, so who knows. But as it stands now, if I had to guess over under, I think he never touches the AEW world title.
Really?
Yeah, I don't see that for him.
Mhm.
I see him being one of those guys, like he could definitely challenge for it, but I see him as one of Tony's mid-card projects, like, you know, one of the guys that he puts the other belts on and he kind of keeps at a certain level, but I don't see him pushing him as one of his faces of AEW. Come on, like he's not doing that, bro.
Well, he's definitely not doing that right now, but yeah.
No, it's never happening. I love the guy, but it's never happening. And not in that company. Prove me wrong, you know, but I just don't see him getting Swerve Strickland, Will Ospreay, MJF treatment. I just don't see that ever happening for him.
And that's where I think it would have benefited him to stay, you know, solo New Japan longer,
and win the title,
raise your stock a little bit higher, and then come over as Gabe Kidd, like the man from New Japan, not like 1/3 of the dogs, and you're a Death Rider, and you're
he's the bitch in two groups simultaneously.
And they kind of mentioned that on commentary because Charlton was like, yeah, you know, Zach's the front man and Gabe's in two groups and not the front man of either of them.
Yeah. I will say this though, Gabe is in the best shape of his fucking life.
Oh yeah, now. Shredded. Yeah, incredible shape. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, moving on to the next guy here at 6 points, we got the Prince, Callum Newman. Night 5 defeating Zack Sabre Jr. and Night 7 losing to Drilla Moloney.
We already talked about the Drilla match. I thought the Drilla match was pretty great, but the Zack match was the real standout here. That's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, I'm not doing like a tally because we're covering a lot of matches, but for me, I felt like that was the best tournament match for Callum so far, was the Zack match.
Yeah, I would say that, or you could potentially maybe the Yuya match from Chicago. But yeah, I thought this match absolutely rocked. I like this way better than Zack and Gabe. And yeah, I thought also you got some, you know, British history here with these guys and the independent scene there. And yeah, I just thought it was a really well laid out match. Of course, you know, Zack had a nice little bullseye to go after the shoulder of Newman, and Newman having to use his speed on top of his you know, new power to take out Zack. And we mentioned earlier, Newman's doing these crazy spots where he's doing the running drop kick into the chairs and landing on that bad shoulder. Which, if I'm him, I wouldn't really. I get you want to show out, but maybe save that one for later down the line.
Bro, he's been doing stuff like this for a while now. Like, he did that stuff in the Tsuji match at Dominion, but a lot of people don't recall probably that he was doing this in almost all of his New Japan Cup matches. Mm-hmm. The one that stands out to me was the match with Oscar. Wasn't like a match that you have to like recall, you know, it's not like a classic, but like Oscar was a monster in that match and Callum was getting ragdolled and he kept throwing Callum into the chairs all throughout the arena. And I think they were doing that even in the preview tag. So like Callum is just a guy that is throwing caution to the wind and doing some really, like, we see a lot of people get thrown into chairs in New Japan. It happens quite often, but it's it's pretty pedestrian. It's relatively safe, but Callum is just he's putting his whole pussy into it, bro. Like, he's getting thrown head first with like no safety. Like, he's just taking, you know, he's putting his arms out and just hoping that he takes the bump the right way. But like, he's taking some really rough landings, honestly.
Yeah. And got like a sneaky win over Zack. So, I mean, towards the end of the match, you know, Zack's kind of out wrestling him. Zack's doing all the European clutches and all these different type of pinning maneuvers. And it ended up being Newman that caught him with a schoolboy, grabbed the tights, and got one over on Zack.
I was even just now trying to recall, like, okay, how did Callum beat Zack? And then, yeah, he grabbed the trunks and he kind of sneaked one on him. I liked the story that Callum, you know, when he was going into the tournament, and this is kind of, I don't like this portion of it. It's kind of nonsensical, but he was like saying, I'm not even going to try and win this tournament, which usually when guys say I'm not trying to win this tournament, that's when you know they're not going to fucking win it. But at first he was like, I'm here just to prove that I'm the best, which is like, well, what the fuck do you think winning the tournament does? Like, that doesn't make a lot of, you know, it's like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm trying to get the most stars, you know, is what he's really saying without saying it. But then, you know, there's this other aspect where it's like, I see myself as the best foreigner in the entirety of the company, and I want to prove that. And beating Zack Sabre Jr. was like one of those prerequisites. It's like, it's mandatory. You got to beat Zack if you really want to make this proclamation that you're the best outsider in all of the company. And he did that by nefarious means, but he did it nonetheless. And then on top of that, there's also the aspect where he cut the post-match promo and he's like, I said before that I wasn't going to win this shit. Well, I changed my mind. Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and win it now. So I liked that he's kind of changed up what he's saying. One last thing before I kick it over to you, because I wanted to make mention of this and we forgot. Gabe, when he was cutting his post-match promo against Zack, he got on the mic and he started
the fake cry.
Started doing the fake cry, the emotional, and I was like, I know this is bullshit. Like,
yeah.
And then he's like, you can suck my dick. He's like, get fucked. Like, I loved that, bro.
Yeah. But yeah, Newman, you know, coming back from the injury, maybe his, you know, confidence was a little bit shattered on whether or not he could win the tournament. But yeah, getting a win over a former G1 winner and another former champion, I guess, gave Newman the confidence boost that he needed. And yeah, he's like, yeah, now I'm definitely going to win this thing. So yeah, I think Newman, you know, I've really enjoyed his push this year and think he's been a nice welcome to this kind of new main event mix that they're creating. And I think that, yeah, he's had some really solid matches in this tournament so far. And that's going to move us on to one half of the Knockout Brothers. Oscar also sitting 3-2 with 6 points. So on night 5, he lost to HENARE. Night 7, defeating Aaron Wolf by ref stoppage.
On night 2 of the tournament, Oscar was on commentary. We didn't talk about it too much last week, but it popped in my brain. I was like, I forgot to say this. Was listening to Trish and Sarah. I'm doing some catch up on some old podcasts. I think this wasn't their most recent recording, but the one before, but they talked about, maybe it was their most recent. I don't recall, but they were talking about the G1 Climax. And they were saying like that Oscar was saying a lot of things on commentary that were like, I don't know. I don't want to say they got him into hot water. That's probably not the case. Maybe it is. I don't know. But it was stuff where I think Walker like had to keep covering up for it because there was a lot of very critical and kayfabe busting things that he was saying. Jeremy, I just got to tell you, bro. And I think Oscar's a listener of Keeping His Strong Style. I wholeheartedly 100. I wanted to say this last week, but it just slipped my mind. I know that sometimes things that you and I say and believe align with what a lot of the fan base might think. And who knows? I mean, I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but obviously like we have some level of influence because we do have a lot of listeners that are fans. And so that probably some of the things that we say probably get in the zeitgeist. But the truth of the matter is you and I really don't represent, from my interactions with diehard New Japan fans, I don't think the way that you and I think about wrestling and talk about it and feel about it really echoes the sentiments of the diehard New Japan fan. Mm-hmm. I find most of them to be way more in the weeds, for lack of a better term, and to kind of have even a totally different way of consuming and viewing wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like sickos. What Oscar was saying on night 2 did not scream to me as online message board, like the kind of people that are on, like, say, New Japan Reddit. It didn't scream to me New Japan Redditism. It screamed to me, I listen to Keeping It Strong Style. And a lot of the shit that those guys say specifically aligned with the talking points that he had, the criticisms about referees, criticisms about, being inconsistent with the rules.
Right. Yeah.
Criticisms about Tanahashi and things he was supposed to do and things he hasn't done.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. He went off on Sonata's like outfits and stuff. Yeah. It's like,
bro, there were so many things where I was like, this motherfucker, he's gotta be a listener. I hope, I could be wrong, but I hope he's listening right now. And he's like, fuck, they know.
Hey, as Rich says, social suplex under surveillance.
Bro, we are constantly under. Oh man, you'd be surprised in the messages we get. But yeah, speaking of Oscar, though, we already talked about the HENARE match, very hard hitting. The Aaron Wolf match, I was shocked that he got a referee stoppage over Aaron Wolf. I wasn't necessarily shocked that he beat him because Aaron is the never champion. And Oscar screams to me all day long, upset monster guy that can challenge for that title later in the year. I know that I personally don't see KOB immediately going for the tag titles again. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that there is the never 6-man tag team titles in the mix as well probably might play into whatever's going to happen next between KOB and UE. And I'm kind of projecting right now personally that KOB is going to win World Tag League and not get those titles back until 1-4. I think that's what makes the most sense. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, coming out of G1, I think these guys are going to have to fill their time a little bit. I think Oscar, I could have projected all day that Oscar would beat Aaron Wolf because he just screams to me as a really good never title challenger. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think that he would beat him by referee stoppage. I think him beating him by referee stoppage, A, was so refreshing and awesome, and B, really just cinches his like potential claim at a title shot. This screamed Faleism, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but this screamed Faleism to me all day. This screamed Archerism to me all day. You know, even Jonah Rock a couple years ago, guys that come in, big monsters and they get a win over a champion, and now they've solidified a title shot.
Yeah, I like what they kind of set up for the story too, because I did watch their preview tag the night before, and it's very much Oscar, the big tall monster, essentially kind of being like, all right, let's see if your judo can work on a monster, and Wolf proving like, yeah, I can throw you, and like getting some throws off on Oscar, but not being able to fully overwhelm Oscar. In that whole tag match, Oscar didn't tag Gato in at all. And the Young Lion got tagged in, and Oscar ended up finishing the Young Lion. And then here in this match up here, kind of the same output of where, Oscar's like, yeah, let's see what you can do here with me, Mr. Judo Man. And obviously Wolf did get some great judo throws off on Oscar and looked great. But again, just the stature and size of Oscar was a little bit too much for Aaron Wolf and ended up overwhelming him. And, Oscar has been using that nightmare sleeper, kind of a hangman's twirling chokehold, and he was able to kind of like get into a version of that and get Aaron Wolf on his back and get the ref stoppage. So obviously, very big win there and very decisive over a judo Olympic gold medalist. So a really big win there for Oscar, and it was a very snug, hard hitting matchup. It's not going to, blaze a trail on your match of the year list or anything, but I thought it was very solid, very snug, show the strengths of both guys. And yeah, I thought Oscar looked really good in victory here. And like you mentioned, I think that he is a great guy to have as a challenger, into the fall. People, they want to see something interesting, in the fall and early winter getting into Wrestle Kingdom. And I think, like you mentioned, I think, obviously the people want KOB back together. They want another title run, but I think, kind of holding it off, waiting till World Tag League and like coming out of G1, letting these guys kind of still linger in singles for a little bit would be a good way to kind of shake the fall up.
I agree. We got a couple questions here before we move on to the next B block competitor.
Yeah, Secret Jacket 3271 says, could Oscar become an actual single star, or is he more a tag team guy?
I mean, there's no reason he couldn't do both, right? Mm-hmm. I'm really not sure why. I think that part of why people count out Oscar is just the overwhelming charisma of Yuto-Ice and the reactions he gets. And oftentimes we are, especially on the Western side of fan bases, we just believe there's got to be a Jannetty in any Rockers tag team situation. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's always the case. I think that, there's been plenty of historical examples of tag teams where both members have plenty of success, and Oscar has, for lack of a better term, all the tools to get the job done. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that he's not going to still continue to compete as a tag team guy and excel, but like, I don't know exactly how tall he is. Like how, what is he? 6'8", 6'9"?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Like why wouldn't they utilize him to his full potential as a singles competitor down the line?
Yeah, and if longtime listeners might remember, I was very big on Oscar as a young lion in a singles role, and thought that he showed a lot of promise. And so yeah, I definitely think there is something there to him. Will he become a world champion or be like a main eventer? That I can't. I'm not confident quite yet, but I definitely think he's a guy that could be in the mix, in that upper mid card mix, and be a solid singles guy. Also, yeah, being that tag guy at the same time. So I think also for Western fans, we're kind of like, well, you can't do both. Like either you're a singles guy or you're a tag guy, or you have to live in one of those lanes. But yeah, in New Japan, especially with it predominantly not being always the, tag team wrestling not being the most important thing, I think you can live in both lanes during different seasons of the year. Obviously we're in a very heavy singles season right now. So like, yeah, he can be focus on singles and even coming out into the fall, and then when you get in the World Tag League, yeah, he can kind of refocus on that.
Yeah, so Cage Match has him listed at 6'7", and I agree. You know, everything that you said there, especially how high you were on him as a tag team guy or as a young lion. And we learned back then, best leg drop and big boot in the business, better than Hogan.
Yeah. And then
also, we're about a year out, just a little over a year from the passing of Hulk Hogan. So, you know, throw one on the grill, you know, got to light up the pack.
Dark Soldier says, as much as Ice, the good one, is rightfully praised, I feel Oscar has been doing a great job in this tour too and deserves some flowers. Would you agree?
I 100% agree. And I think that there is this underlying aspect that people are missing where it's like, okay, we talked about this character arc that's going on with Yuto-Ice, right? This kind of underdogism where, because these two guys are separated, we're sort of seeing the strength of Oscar. We're seeing the calculated nature of him, the power, what makes him a dynamic hot tag guy. But he is somebody that like can game plan. He's not swayed by his emotions. And obviously pairing two guys like that together, they're you know, they complete one another as a tag team. They're like something that makes it a perfect pairing. But Oscar is not this hothead that is just driven by passion, but he's somebody who is calculated and has the tools and can get things done. And in a kayfabe sense, he might be the superior one in the group. Look at the physical gifts that he has. Like Yuto-Ice doesn't have those things. This is not someone who's getting gassed out. He's not getting stopped in his matches. He has taken some losses. Actually, really, it's just one loss, and it was to HENARE, if you really think about it. Or has he taken 2 losses? Yeah, he has.
Yeah.
But all the same, he's not in kayfabe taking the kind of batterings and beatings that Yuto-Ice is.
Right. And also, yeah, Yuto is the one that's, you know, getting ref stoppages and getting knocked out, where, yeah, Oscar, is coming off a little bit more dominant. So, yeah, he's been having a good tour, and, yeah, I think both Knockout Brothers have been doing really well. And I think also, like you mentioned earlier, I think with Yuto-Ice, yes, the overwhelming charisma and, you know, star power and the way the crowd reacts to him, I think, yeah, is kind of making people underestimate Oscar.
I do think that there is something where I know for many years WWE was like the land of giants. And truth be told, it's been a long time since they have actually I'm not actively watching them, but it's been a long time since they've gone full in. We're going to give the big belt and the push to a quote unquote big man, you know, outside of like a Brock Lesnar. They don't really do that anymore. But for many years they used to, like, you know, Kevin Nash, Sid Vicious, The Undertaker, like, you know, Big Show, Kane, like there were big, tall guys that sort of drove that company. And that's actually pretty rare if you think about it. For Major League Wrestling companies, it's not often that they decide to go all in on big, tall individuals. Tony Khan has shown a residence, you know, or whatever the word is, like he's been hesitant to do that. WCW very often did not go with their most, you know, physically gifted individuals outside of like maybe Goldberg, who's not even, you know, a super tall guy. And New Japan has very rarely ever done that themselves. You know, they've had some big men that have been top of the card, and some of them have been champion, but it's been a long time. You think about how many massive, big individuals have been in this company in the last 20 years and how many of them ever actually even challenged or held the title. It's few and far between. I think that's sort of a glass ceiling that I'm wondering if someone like Oscar can develop into and actually break to be like a real world champion in this company. Because I talked about it last week. Like, they get the leg up by being physically tall. It opens doors.
Yeah.
But then there's a ceiling there.
Yeah. So hopefully, they, the booking and everything kind of lines up for him in his favor, because I think he's super talented. So it'll be interesting to see if he does kind of break that class ceiling. Well, up next here, also with 4 points, is the never openweight champion, Aaron Wolf, who lost to Gabe Kidd on night 5, lost to Oscar on night 7. So we kind of touched on both of these matches already. But, the story of this G1 for Aaron Wolf is, how is he going to acclimate in this, scenario where he's not having to face Narita and Fale and all these House of Torture guys and, being able to spread his wings. And, what's he going to look like in a G1? And I think Wolf has looked really good thus far.
I personally, Jeremy, have not been overly impressed with Aaron Wolf, but that's not necessarily an indictment on the man, because again, he spent the entire first half of his year just kind of going through learning lessons, mucking it up with House of Torture and doing preview tags. So this is a whole new test. Like, for instance, right now in the entirety of his year, the singles match of his that outside of the Evil match, I should say, since he's like really gone full-time active, the singles match that I've enjoyed the most was the Yoshihashi match to even get into the G1.
Yeah.
I think he is learning a lot in these matches. He's progressing. He's having good matches. Like, they're not bad matches whatsoever. And it's like I was have a ton of classics. It's not like he's in a lot of main events here. But if we're being real, and I know it's a little bit of a handicap because he's the least experienced individual in the entirety of the block. So there's just this huge handicap there, and he is showing growth and progress. Those are all positive things. Outside of Ren Narita, he's at the bottom of the block in terms of like overall performance. I know I'm kind of negating the grading. I know a lot of people grade on a curve with him right now, and that's fair, and I don't deny that. But if I'm just talking about my personal night-to-night enjoyment, I'm not super high on Aaron Wolf right now. My favorite match of his in the entirety of the tournament was probably his opening night match against HENARE. And the rest of the tournament, it seems like he's going to school, and we're sort of watching it in real time.
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying there. I'll see if you're looking, just for the bangers or the notebook matches, like he's not really doing that right now. I mean, his matches have probably been in that kind of, 3.25, 3.5 star range that he's had so far. But however, I think, for me, I'm just like, I'm trying to see, where this guy at as far as a wrestler. Like, is he somebody that is competent, that's not going to, trip over his feet and, can have a solid matchup? And I feel like he's been doing that. I feel like he's, showing fire. I feel like he's starting to learn, some more placement of the ring. He doesn't look completely lost out there. I feel like he's starting to show some charisma, and, he's, adding some wrinkles to his repertoire. He's not just relying on the elbow and body slam. He's doing some other cool maneuvers and starting to do a lot more, lariats and strikes. So I think, he's showing more and developing. It's, very similar to, the Bolton Newman, their first G1s, where it's, very short matches. They're kind of, templated a little bit. But I feel like they're kind of, giving him some leeway to do some other stuff. And yeah, I think he's looking really good. And I think that there is something there with him. And I think also, he's going to have to, continue to develop over time. It's going to be a trial by fire kind of thing. But so far, I think he's looking, I think there's promise there. Also, again, if you're looking just for star quality, that it's not, he's not giving you notebook matches quite yet. Also, the Yoshihashi match was, but his 3 matches that he's had in this tournament so far have not been. But I think that over time, I could see him developing more and more into, a top-end guy.
Yeah, I think everything that you're saying there is fair. And this is one of the recent developments. Like, they didn't used to do this thing where they took guys that are maybe not fully prepared for a G1 and throw them into the deep end to have them learn on the job. That's a more recent development. And like you said, they did that a couple of years ago with Newman and Oleg Bolton. And we're seeing a version. It's not quite as packaged and templated as those ones were, but it's in the same vein. That's what Aaron Wolf is doing here. I agree with everything that you're saying. I think he looks competent. I think that he's adding new wrinkles. The one thing that I think is lacking, where I'm not impressed, because I don't want it to just sound like I'm a stars merchant here, where I'm just like being completely unfair to the guy. I'm realistic. I understand what's going on. I'm not seeing that right now today. And again, I think it's all in development. I think he looks confident in the ring. I think he looks competent. But I don't see that like super duper, I'm the fucking man, I'm a star, and I'm here, and you guys, you know, and I'm connecting the way that guys who are of a similar generation that I can kind of point to, like Daiki Nagai and Matsumoto, who are both, you know, young lions, that I think that they do it better. They project better. I think he's got good selling, good facials, good timing. He fires up well. He gets good reactions. It's all positive, but to be a star, you got to be a star. And right now he's not coming off to me like a star.
Yeah, I definitely see that. He does this, you know, this weird thing where he like blows on his hands. I guess it's like Charlton was saying, it was for like to, you know, warm his hands up or whatever, but it kind of looks like he's nervous sometimes. But yeah, so I think there is some stuff though where he could work on to kind of project more and kind of come off as more of a star, you know, kind of capture people. But yeah, I think that there's some work there, but I think that comes with time. And for some people, it's just not natural. And, you know, maybe for him, maybe he won't get there. Maybe he will.
Well, but here's the thing with that. It's the one thing that he needs to be doing to a greater extent than anything else is being a star, because he is a star. He just needs to go out there and show the world, like his name, his credentials, you know, the profile that he carries and the push he's getting. You gotta be a fucking star first and foremost. I know that it's New Japan, it's the king of pro wrestling, and we typically just talk primarily about like the talent and quality of the wrestling, right? And we want that from him, absolutely. But beyond all of that, based on who he is and what he's there to do, I need him to carry himself like he's the fucking man. That's the thing that matters more than anything else. And this is what I'm saying, where I'm like, I'm not really seeing it right now. He was more of a star on day one than he is 8 months in. We're approaching the 8-month mark. And I know that I'm being a little bit nitpicky here. It's provided he's in this for the long haul. 2-3 years from now, probably be a totally different story. There's going to be growth, but given his profile, given his push, he needs to kind of have it right now. And I feel like that's something that like you can just have, you know what I mean? If it's not something you need to necessarily learn, it's something you can have, is projection and charisma. And he needs to showcase that in his own way.
Yeah. And I don't know, some guys just don't have that charisma, and, you know, some guys can pick it up, but yeah, he needs to tap into whatever, you know, that energy is that he had on night one. And the presentation, I know he's kind of leaned into more of like a pro wrestler presentation, but I feel like he probably should have stuck with more of the judo presentation. I know he wanted to prove that, I'm going to be a pro wrestler, but I feel like kind of sticking with the gi and that kind of, you know, leaning into what is essentially got him over is the, you know, winning the gold medal and being this judo star. You know, Kurt Angle came out in a singlet, you know, like lean into what your strengths are.
Yeah, but here's the thing with that, Jeremy, is like judo, kind of the same thing with sumo. It's like in that country, those two sports are like they're national sports.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really go in as a practitioner representing those sports and then take losses and do jobs. It is the thing. Remember when Kurt Angle, that famous story is like when he met with Vince McMahon. This is before he ever even, I think, went to ECW to just scope things out. He sat down with Vince and they wanted to give him a huge contract. And he's like, okay, I'm here for it. Here's the only thing I can't lose.
Yeah.
Because he was like, like I'm an Olympic gold medalist. Like I can't turn around and like do a job to fucking Spike Dudley on a dark house show.
Sunday Night Heat. I can't be losing to Val Venus.
Yeah, like it's just not something he can do. And then he had to like get smartened up and learn what wrestling is. But amateur wrestling in the States, as much as it's becoming popular and stuff, it's not seen the same way. Like those two sports, sumo and judo, are like the national most venerated sports of the country. And I don't think he can go out there in a gi and then do a job to Fale in the New Japan Cup. Like it would be dishonorable and probably like a huge, it's the same reason why like, it'd be a controversy. It's the same reason why, what's wrong with me? Who's the Rikishi or the Yokozuna that just passed away?
Akabono.
Yeah, Akabono was like one of the most legendary sumo wrestlers of all time. He was not wrestling as a sumo wrestler in pro wrestling. He put on a singlet too, because, same thing with like, I know he wasn't a national champion, but like Tenryu was a really big sumo star, and he had like, and Koji Katao, anybody who like left sumo or judo, they had to shave off the hair or take off the gi because they can't represent those sports in pro wrestling. And then lose.
Yeah, well, he's got to figure something out. Well, up next with 4 points, we got a sold out Ren Narita. So night 5, he gets his forfeit win over Shota Umino.
Fuck you, Shota.
Night 7, he loses to HENARE. We talked about that match already. Any other thoughts on Ren Narita?
I'm seeing a lot of people out there talking about how Ren Narita is surprising them, and they're impressed because he is mixing in a little bit of the dojoism. But here's the thing, Jeremy, is like, I personally don't think he's been shying away from mixing in the dojoism for the past year.
Yeah,
I think he's been doing that.
Yeah, I feel like honestly since turning, like he does kind of play in, I'm still going to do my submissions and my knee bars, and I'm still going to throw some strikes and knees. Yeah, I'm going to do some low blows and hit you with a push-up bar. But yeah, I feel like that LA Dojo Narita has kind of always been bubbling under the surface.
All the same, the gear, the bodysuit, looking, I mean, bro, he's young and he's dressing like he's Chono, like he's fucking Nakamura at the end of his career. It's abysmal. And the matches he's having here are not good. Like he's not having, and we've had people in the past who have been highly critical of Narita's G1s. I'm not necessarily one of those, but like, I think he's on track, right? For anybody that's like, oh yeah, I'm somewhat impressed with Ren Narita, is like, I think he's on track to have his worst G1 right now, the way things are going. And he's in a block full of great wrestlers, and he's just not on pace to be someone that I would look at and say, yeah, this is a deserving carrier of the moniker as leader of House of Torture. And I think he's on the fast track to potentially be relegated back to underling when somebody else comes in and takes over that group.
Yeah, he's not been great, and it just also it's been the shenanigans and trying to get people interfering and getting the weapons and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just each block has their low ends, and Narita's definitely a low end of the B block, and we have several more matches of his to go, and I don't foresee him, improving or getting any better. And unfortunately, because he's kind of been pushed, he'll probably will get some more wins and potentially be alive on the last night, or be in a spoiler type role. But I definitely think he's going to potentially surge this coming week. Then up next, also 4 points, the Heat Storm, Yuya Uemura. We talked about he lost to Drilla on night 5. He got his Shota Umino forfeit on night 7.
Yeah, the loss to Drilla, he was having a very strong tournament, 2-1, and then if he won that match, would have put him at 6 points. So I think the fact that everybody, like I mentioned earlier, they're picking up that automatic win against Shota. And in a way, yeah, it's points on the board, but it's basically they all cancel each other out. And it means that they have less opportunity to work matches and put points on the board. It actually tightens up the standings quite a bit and makes every match that much more important. So any loss that you take in this block is going to have much greater effect than it will in, say, the A block. So we've got guys at 8 points already, and he's at the halfway point of that. So he's going to need to win 2 more matches just to get back to a tying position with people that are fairly close to the 10 and 12 mark. Aside from that, though, the Drilla match was great. Yuya is having a really fantastic tournament. I would say right now he is potentially, here's the thing that is surprising. The B block is not having as strong or as good a tournament as the A block.
Mm-hmm.
But Yuya might be the standout guy in terms of the work itself. But yeah, he's towards the bottom of the block right now. But I do think the Zack Sabre match, that win that he had was really, really that was major. And I think he might be like my standout performer from the block right now.
Yeah, Uemura has been great in this tournament so far, and yeah, also we didn't get much of him this past week, but yeah, I think he's definitely somebody that's gonna surge this coming week, and especially with Umino being out, I think he's definitely a heavy favorite. I mean, he was already a favorite for a lot of people to advance, but I think especially with Umino being gone, that opens the door even more for him, and so I think he has a lot of winnable matches coming up. He, like you mentioned, he got that big win over Zach, and so yeah, I think he's been very good and somebody to keep your eyes out on for.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Zach, but I think both of them being at the bottom of the block and being favorites in the tournament, I think they're both guys that are about to surge.
Yeah, so yeah, Zach, he's sitting at 1-3 with 2 points. Night 5 losing to Newman. Night 7 losing to Gabe Kidd. So yeah, I mean, Zach still he's almost in the same role as Shingo. Like they're both great performers in their block, but they're at the bottom of the block. And I expect both guys to make a rebound and come back. So yeah, I mean, Zach with already 3 losses in, I could easily see him reeling off 5 wins in a row, or even 4 in a row to get to that 5-4 area. But I expect Zach to be alive going into the final night.
Yeah, and maybe what I said, Yuya as the performer. It probably, now that I'm looking back and thinking about it, Zach is probably the performer of the B block, especially when you add in that match with Umino and how great that was. And he is the only person in the block moving that is going to have all 9 matches. So in a certain sense, he's got a tougher tournament than everybody else. But yeah, the match with Callum was outstanding. The match with Gabe Kidd, I really enjoyed it quite a bit. The match with Yuya was awesome. And then the match with Shota. So he probably does have the strongest, resume in the block, which isn't surprising. I mean, more often than not, Zack Sabre Jr. is an MVP in almost any block he's in, in the past 5 years of being in this tournament. So, and I do expect for him to kind of surge back here, in the weeks to come.
Yeah.
Before we close up here, let me take a look at what we've got at the top of the block. So on January 31st, we've got Yuya and Aaron Wolf at the top of their block in the main event. Night 11, Umino and Callum Newman will be main eventing. Night 13, Gabe Kidd. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I should go back. Shota Umino's not in this shit. That actually changes things quite a bit on this, huh? Yeah, so it was going to be Callum and Umino, but now it's Gabe Kidd and HENARE.
Mm-hmm.
And then night 13, it was going to be Umino and Gabe Kidd, and now it's Callum and Oscar. I am wondering if they're going to keep what they have here listed. And then
that's what's
finally
listed.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, on NJBaby1972.com, that's what's listed.
Okay, gotcha. And then night 15 is the final. No. Night 17 is the final B block night. So yeah, night 15 we've got Kid and Yuya listed as the main event here. So
well, night 17 will be the card order will be determined by the points.
No, I know. I said night 15 is Kid and Yuya.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and then night 17, we don't know what the lineup is going to be.
Yeah.
So it's sort of feeling like had Shota been here, he was going to get most of these main events. And then like Callum is probably, who was going to be in a lot of the like semis, is kind of filling in. Gabe Kidd is also at the top of a lot of these main events now. So things are definitely a little weird now that Shota's out of the block, and I hadn't looked at how many main events he was going to be closing out the tournament with.
Yeah. Well, going into the next week, we have several nights coming up. So night 8 will be kicking off Wednesday, July 29th in Yamato Arena. That'll be an A block night. So we got Jake Lee versus Bolton Oleg, Sonata versus Oiwa, Takeshita versus Great Okan, Goto versus Shingo, and the main event, Yota Tsuji versus Yuto-Ice.
The A block has been really outstanding once again. That match at the top of the card, Tsuji and Yuto-Ice, is very, very interesting. I don't expect Tsuji to lose here. So I'm assuming Yuto-Ice is going to give him a really spirited main event. There is a possibility, because it's Tsuji and because it's Yuto-Ice and it's the main event, that this could be like a sleeper match of the block that people maybe haven't counted on. And this might be like a really, really, really standout performance from Yuto-Ice in a losing effort against Tsuji.
Yeah, I saw in the preview tag, Yuta was, messing with Tsuji and took the title and was wearing the title on his shoulder. So also there's definitely a little bit of animosity there, even though they're the same group. They're still kind of in that, Reiwa generation of guys that are trying to establish themselves and be aces and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's what
I was referring to earlier when I was like, I don't even know who's in there's so many people in Unbound Company that they just don't feel like they're in the same group.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that could end up being a very compelling main event.
Goto and Shingo, those are two former champions that are in very precarious positions in the block, and I think it's winnable for either one of them. I'm thinking Shingo might need to pick up that win to come back.
I'm feeling Shingo there.
Yeah. Oleg against Jake Lee. Anything's possible. Jake Lee's been sneaking a lot of wins and he's coming off of a loss, but I'd like to see Oleg pick up that win there. This is a pretty monumental night for almost everybody in this block. Like, this is where we're going to start seeing the separation, because it's right now it's all parity based. Almost everybody's at 4 points. So every match here is going to be really important. Sonata against Oiwa. That's also a very, very, if we see the Sonata that we've been seeing show up against that Oiwa, this could be a really fantastic card.
Yeah. Then night 9 will be Friday, July 31st from Takamatsu City Gymnasium with B block night. We got Drilla versus Oscar, ZSJ versus Narita, Gabe Kidd versus Newman, Yu Uemura versus Aaron Wolf.
So this is the first night that I'm looking at it and it's not necessarily like there's a lot of talent there, so they might perform above my expectations, but it's night 9, it's in a gymnasium, and it's not the strongest lineup of matchups. You know, I could see Drilla and Oscar being hard hitting, but maybe not going full out. Zach and Ren, they've had great matches before, but I'm just not counting on Ren Narita to do it this time.
Not how the torture Ren.
Zach is probably going to pick up the win there, though.
Yeah.
Kidd and Callum, very interesting match.
Yeah, again, especially, a lot of British history there.
That plus there's the AEW-ness and the
the whole Death Rider, yeah.
Yep. But Yuya and Wolf, that's got to be one of the most important matches of Wolf's entire run in the G1, and that's the one to keep your eyes peeled for.
Yeah, he's another Yoshihashi, style performance in that spot there.
He might. Here's the thing: they both kind of need the win here. That's a make or break match. I mean, not entirely, but it's going to be so hard for either guy. Yuya is already a little bit behind the 8 ball. I think because he's coming off of a stoppage loss, I think Aaron Wolf might beat Yuya there to like solidify himself a little bit, get a big win, and then Yuya starts surging back after that evening. I think we're going to see Aaron Wolf beat Yuya in the main event here.
Wow. That'd be big for him.
Do you disagree?
I mean, I just don't know. I feel like, again, with Yuya kind of being a favorite and, they've kind of been treating Wolf kind of like a young lion with some of the losses he's gotten. So, you would think that seniority, you kind of go with Yuya over him. But I mean, I think it would be, an interesting win to give him.
He needs some sort of meaningful win. He's going, having the Never title gives you a level of protection because it tells you at what level he's at and that he can suffer losses and it'll be okay. But he also does need a marquee win. I think this is where he's going to get one of those marquee wins.
Yeah, I mean, he probably should. So, yeah, that should hopefully end up being a great main event there. Then night 10 will be Saturday, August 1st in Hiroshima Sun Plaza. Back to the A block with Sonata versus Bolton, Jake Lee versus Yuto-Ice, Shingo Takagi versus Great-O-Khan, Tsuji versus Oiwa in the main event, Goto versus Takeshita.
Goto versus Takeshita is always fantastic. That's a really big match for both guys. Goto, I'm wondering if he's coming off that Shingo loss and now he's going to be main eventing, what that might potentially mean.
Yeah, I could see him winning that. And, last time these guys wrestled in G1, it was a strong style fight of the year contender for our year-end award. So that should be a nice main event there.
It's going to be fun to see Tsuji now leaving all these veterans, mixing it up with the Reiwa guys. And so coming off the Ice match, now he's got the Oiwa match. Like, I think these are both first time, like since, post excursion matchups, and that one's going to be fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, we got some other weird pairings here. Sonata and Bolton, I guess, Sonata continues, trying hard. I guess that could be a good little match, but Jake Lee versus Yuto-Ice, that might be, I don't know how Ice is going to handle that. And then Shingo with Okan. We've seen Shingo and Okan have some good matches in the past, but I don't know, with Okan's current effort levels, I don't know if Shingo's going to get much out of him.
Some of the best nights on this block have been when Sonata, Jake Lee, and Great-O-Khan have been canceling one another out and opening up the other matches. But now that they've kind of all done that for the most part, this is where we're going to start getting into like, you can only count on 2 great matches each night, maybe 3.
Yeah. Then night 11, Sunday, August 2nd from Fukuoka Convention Center. Back to the B block with Drilla versus Aaron Wolf, Zach versus Oscar, and Narita versus Yuya in the main event. Gabe Kidd versus HENARE.
Yeah, both guys are at the top of the block currently. I think Gabe Kidd will probably win that match. I most likely, especially since he's got other main events, but they've done some upsets. HENARE is a guy, like, let's just say hypothetically, you've got Gabe Kidd being one of the people. He's got the white belt. He's a very high likelihood to go into the play-ins, and he needs to suffer losses along the way. HENARE is a very losable main event match to like elevate somebody, maybe even potentially set up a white belt challenger down the road. But Gabe, because I think Gabe probably needs to be beating the bigger names, I think this is a losable match for him. Don't get me wrong, he'll probably beat HENARE. I'm not counting on it, but I think that there are some signs that point to a potential upset here.
Yeah, definitely. And also you can always, link back to the dog pound cage match where, Gabe almost killed that man, split his head open to the white meat. So there's definitely, a history and rivalry there with Kidd and HENARE, but my gut's kind of leaning towards Kidd probably winning.
The Kidd HENARE series with the hard-hitting matches they had a couple years ago seem like a lifetime ago. I've kind of even forgotten that those existed. And you're right. Like they have a lot of history there. They had a long series of crazy singles matches plus the dog pound. So yeah. Drilla Aaron, very interesting matchup.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, what's that going to look like?
I know that I've been a little critical of Aaron Wolf. I feel rightfully so. I still think that he, night in and night out, is the most interesting thing in the B block to pay attention to.
Yeah, I've skipped most undercard stuff, but I'll even watch some of his undercard stuff just again, see how he's doing, how he's mixing it up with some other guys on the roster.
Zach's gonna beat Oscar. I think Yuya's got to beat Ren Narita. I've got Ren Narita taking a lot of losses.
Good. Yeah, I think Yuya has to bounce back here.
Yeah. But that's what we got coming up. 4 more nights of action before next Monday.
Yeah, and then some other quick questions here. No important too. What rivalries do you think they're building up in the G1 for later events?
Honestly, I feel like we've already kind of touched on most of that, but the things I'm looking most at is going to be future title challenges. And I think we've already seen several of those solidified that we've discussed.
Yeah. Then something else you like, which of the non-new generation, not like Oiwa Yuya, has had the best run so far?
I mean, let's put aside the expected top of the card names. And since we're not going to talk about Reiwa type guys, then the person that, and this feels like a leading question, but it was going to be my answer either way. The person I've been most impressed with in terms of like surprise, I didn't expect them to perform at this level, and they is Sanada.
Yeah. I mean, just based off what he's done in the past with his whole heel turn, he's been very fun to watch. Also, I think Shingo, I feel like as a older veteran guy, has been very great to watch as well.
Yeah, I mean he's one of the best in the A block.
Yeah. Reddit user Pete_Thief says, "Do you think Shota was going to win the G1 before he got injured?"
I don't think so. Although I want to say, I saw some of the comments and you guys said I switched up on Shota Umino last week once he got injured. That's not the case. I still am high on him as a performer. I still think that they've got had plans for him before the injury. I just think that once he dropped that white belt, actually, I think once he won the white belt, the writing was on the wall that he wasn't winning this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. With all the main events that he had, I figured he was definitely at least probably slotted for at least a semifinal position.
I agree.
And also, sometimes in the past, when guys get injured, we've seen sometimes where they kind of take it night by night and see how they evaluate it. And maybe he was going to win the whole thing and they couldn't take a chance of trying to wait night by night. They just, totally pulled him out. So maybe that's kind of there, but I think he was definitely a favorite. But yeah, hard to know for sure if he was going to win.
And maybe he just got knocked the fuck loopy.
Yeah. Jar0002 says, "Do you think HENARE and Gabe Kidd are doing more harm than good for B block? Both men have been having not good showings this year so far."
I don't think either of them right now are having just like blow away matches that are star making performances that you can bank on. But this idea that they're not having good showings at all, I wouldn't agree with that.
Yeah, I disagree. I feel like, you look at the whole year, I feel like they always have, there's good showings you can easily point to. And again, maybe they're not blow away, 5-star matches, but I feel like in this tournament, both guys have been very solid so far. Let's mention 7252 says, is the 725 show the best night of the G1 so far?
I don't remember what night that was, but I personally don't think so. For me, I think the best night of the tournament was the night with Shingo. The night that Sonata beat Tsuji and then Shingo defeated, who was it? Oleg? I don't remember. Whatever that night was.
That was, let's see.
Night 6 or night 4? That was night 4.
So night 6 was the Tsuji Shingo. So yeah, it must have been night 4. Yes, night 4 was Sonata Tsuji Bolton Shingo.
And then what was the third match of the night? Was Takeshita and
Ice.
And Ice. I mean, truth be told, I'm kind of counting the domestic G1s as a totally different animal. I still think night 1 of the G1 was the best night.
Yeah, I mean, you can't
top to bottom.
Can't go wrong with full block night. I think I agree with Les Commission. I think that the 25th night where Tsuji Shingo, Ice Oiwa, Takeshita Bolton, I feel like this is probably the best domestic night so far. He also says what match?
Very possibly. Very possibly.
Yeah, he also says which match has felt the most intense in the tournament?
I don't know. What has felt like the most intense to you?
Maybe Gabe and Drilla.
Yeah, double juice.
Yeah. And then outside of that, maybe Ice and Oiwa.
Ice and Oiwa was very, very heated.
Yeah.
There's a lot to kind of pick from, honestly, though.
Yeah. Also asks, who's having a much worse tournament run this year, JAY or Great Okan?
JAY, who's that?
Jacob Austin Young, I think, comparing his Super Juniors to Okan's G1.
Oh, I was confused. Well, JAY's was not bad. It was just he wasn't, I didn't feel like he was attempting, in my opinion, or even slotted to grab the brass ring. Okan is phoning his shit in. Okan is having a worse tournament, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like Okan's actively bad, where Jacob Austin Young was like serviceable.
Jake Lee's having a worse tournament than JAY.
Yeah. Then MJ says, Gabe, Drilla, Callum, Zach, who's been the best Brit this G1?
Zach.
Yeah, I think it's either between Zach or Drilla. I feel like Drilla's, got a nice case going for him.
I think Drilla's having an elevation, and he's meeting and exceeding expectations, but it's hard to outperform Zack Sabre Jr. night after night.
Yeah. And then he says, Riz ranked these wrestlers, Bolton, Oiwa, Uemura, and Wolf.
Riz is, I don't know. I would go, I don't know. Are we talking about, see, I don't know what he means exactly.
Wasn't like Riz just like charisma kind of, they got that juice.
It is, but but it's also like there's a romantic element to it.
Yeah, kind of flirting.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's like I can fucking pull, and that's a whole different element of things. So it's like, but you know what? I'm just going to keep it wrestling related. I'm not going to make it fucking horny. So I would say right now, just for me, Bolton, Uemura, Oiwa, Wolf.
Yeah, I probably agree with you there.
That's going to do it for the show.
Yeah.
Right at just a little over the 3-hour mark. So you guys got to, Jeremy, before we close, I just want to say, a couple weeks back, was listening. I was on my way back home from New York, and I was listening to the Super J Cast, and heard Joel, good friend of the show, throw out some shade. Now, I don't think it was pointed at us. I think it was pointed at the broader New Japan podcasting community. But basically what he was doing was he was hyping up the fact that him and Damon, they're doing single night audio each night on and off on their Patreon covering the New Japan, the G1, I should say. Mm-hmm. And he was sort of like, his whole thing was, who wants to listen to podcasts cover a week's worth of shows and ongoings? That shit doesn't matter by the time, the week is over. And, we're doing it night after night in relatively real time. No one else is doing it fucking like this. This is the best. Right. And, I felt a little bit like, it's not personal shade, but I thought about it and I was like, why the fuck would I want to cover this night after night? Like that would A, that would fucking suck. And then B, I feel like what we bring to the table to vouch for ourselves is to, in a concise manner, summarize the entirety of the week and paint the broader picture. And I don't think it's as easy to paint that broad picture when you're focusing in a tunnel vision on one individual singular night each night. I could imagine that length of audio, and I'm sure they're doing a fantastic job. This is no slight at them, but I just want to say, feel like there's a lot of value to presenting a week's worth of audio covering the entirety of the G1 in this format.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like, almost like a sports center, kind of like a wrap up kind of a style. Like, all right, here's the rankings. Here's where everybody kind of lies going into the next week, and kind of, yeah, like you mentioned, painting the picture, giving you the preview and prediction. So yeah, also I think there's probably pros and cons to both format. Also, shout out Joe Lanza, he's doing his daily G1 audio as well over on the VOW Patreon. So yeah, there's definitely, I think, if you want to see out live date, I think there's some good coverage there with JCast and VOW. But yeah, I think for like the weekly coverage and kind of breaking down, multiple nights in the blocks, I think, the format we're doing is a rocks, and it's pretty great.
Yeah. So suck it.
Well, that's going to wrap it up. Next week, we'll be back to review nights 8 through 11 of G1 Climax 36 and cover all this news. Remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign by patreon.com/KStrongstyle. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KStrongstyle, at Socialsuplex, at Jeremy L. Donovan, at YB_Josh and Liger. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Socialsuplex and the Wrestling Square Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, on the Pull Back Guy, just Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we're at Social Suplex. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com, and check out all the shows that we have here on the network. One Nation Radio with Rich and James, All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin, Imp's AW Venture with the Implications of Matthew Mayer, Wrestling Art of Chris Slings, the AW Match Guide with Sir Sam Brown, Tone Talk with Ali and Leah, the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, and Joshing Around with Tim and Eric. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we'll catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Here it is. We'll catch it this week. Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keeping It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
In business, there's no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. When you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on. Because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else: your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS, official shipping sponsor of the NHL.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.